Brother Jejun, what happened to Lin He? Wei Min hesitated to give the key to Luo Jejun. Luo Jejun did not even look at Wei Min. He walked over and took the key from Wei Min's hand. Brother, what's wrong with you? Sister Min is worried about you, so she hurriedly dragged me to look for you. Why are you still treating Sister Min like this? Even Luo Jejun's sister, Luo Lanlan, pursed her lips and said unhappily. But Luo Jejun was thinking about Yun Jian at this moment. He could not be bothered with his sister and Wei Min at all. He inserted the key into Yun Jian's bedroom door and twisted it open. Luo Jejun could not wait to open the door when he suddenly saw, translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2333. Page 1/1. The moment the door opened, Yun Jian was standing at the entrance. She wore a long shirt that ended at her knees, the loose-fitting garment covering her alluring figure. Her hair was damp and her skin was as smooth and delicate as a newborn baby's. A pinch of her cheeks was enough to squeeze water out of them. The moment the door was opened, a barking sound came from inside. Woof, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Following that, a snow-white little dog came out of Yun Jian's room, wagging its tail. From its expression, it seemed to be very impatient. There was a trace of red on the snow-white puppy's forehead. It was obvious that this dog was the culprit behind all the banging on the door. At least, that was what Luo Jejun thought. Luo Jejun's expression froze, and he was startled. His expression did not look good. What's the matter? Yun Jian was holding a towel, and was wiping her wet black hair. This was the first time Luo Jejun and Wei Min saw Yun Jian with her ponytail scattered over her shoulders. Yun Jian with her hair scattered over her shoulders gave people a different kind of beauty. Especially after taking a bath, Yun Jian's skin was even smoother and more delicate. Her fair face, coupled with her sharp eyes. At this moment, Luo Jejun felt as if he was looking at a fairy who had accidentally fallen into the mortal world. Even Luo Jejun himself did not realize that his gaze was fixated on Yun Jian, as if he was a pervert. Brother Jejun. Did you just think that something had happened to Lin He? Look at Lin He, isn't she fine? Lin He must be tired and wants to sleep early. I think we shouldn't disturb her sleep. Let's go. Seeing how Luo Jejun's eyes were glued to Yun Jian like magnets, Wei Min's womanly jealousy exploded. She tugged at Luo Jejun's arm in an attempt to pull him away. In the future, don't randomly open my door. Unless you're tired of living, I can be merciful and send you on your way. Right after Wei Min said that, Yun Jian spoke up with a cold expression. After she finished speaking, she didn't give Wei Min, Luo Jejun, and Luo Lanlan a chance to react. She stretched out her slender and beautiful hand and closed the door. After Yun Jian closed the door, Luo Jejun was still unable to react to Yun Jian's beauty for a long time. He was stunned for a while before he was led away by Wei Min. "Tsk, what are you talking about? You're acting like a rich young lady, and you're not letting me open the door. Wasn't she just someone who was found after being separated for 10 years? Hadn't she tasted the bitterness of the past? How could she throw a tantrum so quickly? Tsk, how shameless." After Luo Lanlan heard what Yun Jian said, she was subconsciously implanted with negative thoughts about Yun Jian because Wei Min had pulled her aside to badmouth Yun Jian just now. Therefore, Luo Lanlan's first thought after listening to Yun Jian was to mock Yun Jian. Luo Jejun, Wei Min, and Luo Lanlan finally went downstairs. In the bedroom. Just as Yun Jian closed the door, Ce, who was standing in the bathroom beside the bedroom, hugged Yun Jian from behind. Since Yun Jian was wearing a long top, it covered her thighs. She wore nothing underneath her long legs. "Xiao Jian, you're mine." Ce said nothing else. After he hugged Yunjian, one of his hands slid under Yunjian's top. Aha. Aha, translator, Henyi Translations editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2334. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, the night was long. In the Wei family's living room, guests from all walks of life were celebrating. Upstairs, in Yunjian's room, it was a romantic scene. Ce stayed in Yunjian's room for the night before leaving. He was supposed to return to the God's continent, but before he left the Inhun organization, he came here to look for Yunjian because he missed her. Ce had a lot of things to do today, so he shouldn't have come to Piluo City to look for Yunjian. However, he hadn't seen Yunjian for a few days. His thoughts overshadowed his rationality, so Ce took the time to look for Yunjian. He also did it with the woman he loved while he was at it. As for Luo Jiejun, Ce didn't even ask Yunjian about it. That was because Ce trusted Yunjian from the bottom of his heart. Without love, there was no need for a heart-to-heart talk. Both parties could tell with just a glance that the other party was even more intimate. 3 days had passed since the Wei family's small dinner party. 3 days later, Luo Jichen had a new discovery. Hey! Wei Lin, let me tell you, I've got new information. Didn't something happen at the construction site and then it was sealed off by the police? But 15 days later, the police invited experts to the construction site to investigate the case. With my ability, it's not impossible to bring people in to take a look. That's because the professional is my dad's friend. How about it, do you want to take a look? Luo Jichen had been trying his best to please Yunjian these days. He couldn't wait to tell Yunjian all the information he had. That was because Luo Jichen's phone had been breaking down more and more recently. Initially, it would break down once every 2 days, but recently, it had been breaking down twice or thrice a day. It wasn't that Yunjian didn't fix it well, but that Luo Jichen had gone overboard. Hearing Luo Jichen's words, Yunjian's eyes moved. She nodded and said, "Your phone broke down again." "Ah, Wei Lin, you're too amazing. How did you find out that my phone was broken again? Don't tell me you have the ability to predict the future." Hearing Yunjian's words, Luo Jichen was stunned for a moment before he spoke. "My phone is broken. The more you investigate this matter for me, the more diligent you are." Yunjian pointed out Luo Jichen's secret in one sentence. Hearing this, Luo Jichen pursed his lips. It seemed that he was indeed like that. Monday, Rally. Imperial College, Big Field. The principal of the Imperial College solemnly announced on the rostrum that the male students of the Imperial College would have a fencing competition 3 days later. The fencing competition was a unique event of the Imperial College. The fencing competition will be held in front of all the teachers and students. And this fencing competition was a competition that had been passed down since the founding of the Imperial College in the last century. The students studying in the Imperial College were not like other schools. Most of the students here were from rich families, so the college would have many activities like fencing competitions, which would be held in front of all the teachers and students. This year's fencing competition will officially begin 3 days later. If there are any male students who would like to sign up for the fencing competition, please go to the registration office to sign up. The rewards for this year's fencing competition are rich. One of the rewards is that if you win the first place, second place, and third place in the fencing competition, I will allow you to go to the forbidden area of our Imperial College. At the same time, there will be many other rewards, so I hope that everyone will sign up enthusiastically, so that our school's unique fencing competition can be passed down and carried forward. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2335. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 2335 Campus Rebirth, the strongest female Secret Service agent. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 2336. The fencing competition was the symbol of the Imperial College. It was also the legacy of the Imperial College's founder, John, who brought it from Country Y in the last century. The first person who founded the Imperial College, John, was an aristocrat in Country Y. During John's era, the leader of Country Y was the Queen, a woman. Therefore, the status of women in Country Y was not low. When John first came to Country Z to build the Imperial College, he advocated equality between men and women. Therefore, girls could participate in the fencing competition with boys and would not be mocked. At that time, the girls were also very brave. Indeed, there were many champions, runners-up, and third-place finishers in the annual fencing competition. But today, the girls were afraid of leaving a bad impression in front of the boys, so no one signed up for the fencing competition. Part of the reason was that they were afraid of being mocked. The fencing competition also changed from a heroic battle of the past to something that the boys could show off in front of the girls. Back to the main topic, the most recent time that a girl from the Imperial College won the championship was 50 years ago. For 50 years, no girl from the Imperial College could break the record of winning the championship again. It was not that no girl had ever participated in the competition. Take last year's annual fencing competition as an example, there were a few courageous girls who signed up for it. Not to mention breaking the record that no girl had won the championship again in 50 years, it was quite difficult to even get into the top 100 contestants. And the person who won the championship for 3 consecutive years was Luo Jejun. Who was Luo Jejun? He was the eldest son of the Luo group, the future successor. His studies, appearance, and strength were on par. He had participated in the fencing competition for 3 years and had never lost. Therefore, when Yun Jian said this, everyone was dumbfounded. You said you want to win the championship of this year's fencing competition. Do you know what you are saying? Let's not talk about whether you have learned fencing or not. Our Master Jun has won the championship for 3 years. Master Jun is not only proficient in fencing, but also in fighting. Master Jun once stopped a group of 30 people from fighting. He beat the 30 people up so badly that they did not dare to disobey him. What about you? What qualifications do you have to compete with our Master Jun? Moreover, there are so many outstanding talents in our college. You're just a new transfer student. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the girl who was grooming herself in front of the mirror couldn't help but stand up and refute Yun Jian loudly. Exactly. Young Master Jun is handsome, his conduct is good, and his family background is even better. Who do you think you are? Did she think that she could surpass young Master Jun in terms of strength just because she had gotten close to young Master Qin? Or do you think that you're amazing just because young Master Jun pays a little attention to you? Let me tell you, young Master Jun is just playing with you because you're new to him. Who knows, he might get sick of you in 2 days. As soon as Yun Jian arrived, she immediately attracted the attention of the 2 most handsome men in the academy. The girls had long had opinions about Yun Jian. Now that she had the opportunity, she really thought that she had grasped Yun Jian's weakness and began to fight back with fierce words. What right did she have to attract the attention of the 2 most handsome men in their college? She was the youngest daughter of the Wei family who had just been found after being separated from the Wei family for 10 years. Yun Jian was talking about the fencing competition, but the girls in the class kept on talking about other things. Yun Jian sneered and couldn't be bothered with them anymore. She put her hands in her trouser pockets and walked out of the classroom, ignoring the group of girls who kept on talking behind her. Enough. All of you, shut up. If you keep on talking, I'll sell you to the women's brothel. Luo Jichen shouted when he heard the girls' discussion. Reality proved that the Luo family's little tyrant, Luo Jichen, still had his dignity. The group of girls trembled in fear when they heard Luo Jichen shout. They immediately swallowed their saliva and didn't dare to make a sound. Luo Jichen glared at the group of girls again, then chased after Yunjian. At the registration area of the college's fencing department, a good-looking boy was sitting at a desk at the registration area, registering the students who had signed up for the fencing competition. This good-looking boy had his head lowered. He didn't raise his head after registering a few students' names. He only wrote down the name and class. Name, class, the boy said after he finished registering. The next student who had signed up for the fencing competition immediately spoke up. Wei Lin, Year 1, Class 1. The boy's face froze when he heard this beautiful female voice. A female voice, a girl had signed up for the fencing competition. The boy suddenly raised his head and looked at the person who had signed up. When he saw that person, a look of surprise and astonishment flashed across his face. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website, .com. Chapter 2337. You really want to participate in the fencing competition? The boy looked at Yunjian, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and repeated the question. Write it. Yunjian, who was standing in front of the boy, didn't directly answer the boy's question. Instead, she simply said this sentence. Perhaps Yunjian's gaze was too frightening, the boy trembled after hearing it. Then, the boy didn't dare to ask any more. He moved his hand and wrote down Yunjian's name and class. The boy secretly cursed in his heart. This girl looks so thin and weak. Is she serious about participating in the fencing competition? But this sentence, the boy only cursed in his heart and didn't say it out loud. After Yunjian finished signing up, Luo Jichen, who also finished signing up, walked out of the fencing department's registration area. Halfway through, she bumped into Luo Jiejun, Hongling, Wei Zhe, and Wei Min. Seeing Yunjian, Luo Jiejun's eyes flashed with obvious surprise. But he didn't show it on his face. Luo Jiejun stopped Yunjian and asked, Wei Lin, you came with Jichen to sign up? Subconsciously, Luo Jiejun thought that Yunjian wouldn't come here to sign up for the fencing competition. She was just a girl. No. Brother, I came with her to sign up, and I also signed up for myself. Luo Jichen quickly explained after hearing Luo Jiejun's words. Hearing Luo Jichen's words, Yunjian's brother, Wei Zhe, was stunned and questioned loudly, You want to sign up for the fencing competition? Why not? Hearing Wei Zhe's question, Yunjian raised her eyebrows and coldly said. If you want to participate in the fencing competition, it's fine if you win, but if you lose, you'll lose our Wei family's face. So, hurry up and withdraw from the fencing competition. Go and remove the names from the list right now. Wei Zhe couldn't help but order Yunjian. At this point, Wei Zhe, who thought that he was Yunjian's brother, wanted to grab Yunjian's hand and drag Yunjian to the fencing department's registration area to force Yunjian to remove the name. Unexpectedly, Wei Zhe wanted to grab Yunjian's hand and drag her away by force, but before his hand could touch her, Yunjian dodged his hand with a sidestep. In an instant, everyone present heard Yunjian's extremely cold voice, as cold as -degrees Celsius, So, are you ordering me? Wei Lin, our brother's thinking for you. You can't be so willful. You said you've been separated for 10 years, so when did you learn fencing? You didn't even participate in the family's special training. That's why, how are you going to compete with those who are strong? Let's stop. Wei Min wanted to kill Yunjian, so she almost lost control and spoke to Yunjian viciously in front of everyone. Fortunately, she stopped herself in time. Before Wei Min could finish, however, just as everyone thought that Yun Jian should have realized her mistake, a voice rang out. Suddenly, a figure flashed in front of them. Yun Jian, who was in front of them, moved to Wei Zai's back in a flash like a flash of lightning. Wei Zai was shocked. He quickly turned around and reached out. However, no matter how fast Wei Zai's reaction was, Yun Jian immediately grabbed his arm when he reached out. In the next second, Yun Jian grabbed the joints of his arm and hit them twice. Wei Zai was shocked to realize that when Yun Jian hit his arm, it was as if his acupoints were hit and he couldn't exert any strength. What's going on? What kind of skill is this? Before Wei Zai could react, Yun Jian had already let go of Wei Zai's hand and kicked Wei Zai's lower waist from behind. Wei Zai staggered forward a few steps before he stabilized himself. This scene caused an uproar in the audience. However, just as the people present witnessed Yun Jian's attack for the first time and were shocked by Yun Jian's speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness, they heard Yun Jian's words again. There was a hint of arrogance in her words that no one could go against. Before the end of the competition, both of your hands can no longer hold anything. I'll accept your hands. I won't kill you, but remember, you're not the only person in this world who dares to order me around. However, the only person who ordered me around and didn't get killed by me is you, my good brother. Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2338. Yun Jian's words were loud and clear, and they echoed throughout the hall. Everyone was shocked when they heard Yun Jian's words. She accepted his hand. What did that mean? Just as everyone was stunned by Yun Jian's arrogant tone but did not know what she meant, Yun Jian's voice rang out. What did you do to my hand? Why can't I use my hand? A nervous voice suddenly sounded. Everyone's expression froze when they heard this. They turned to look at the source of the voice, and it was Wei Zai. Wei Zai's hand was like a pile of mud after being hit by Yun Jian at the joints. It was difficult for him to even raise his hand. Not to mention whether he could hold the foil in the fencing competition 3 days later. Boom! Everyone's faces turned pale when they heard Wei Zai's words. What Zai are you talking about? She can make your hand lose its strength. Hong Ling grabbed Wei Zai's hand and asked in shock. Wei Zai tried many times but the parts of his arm that Yun Jian had grabbed and tapped on were immobilized. His expression darkened before he uttered in fear, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. I really can't move. Wei Zai looked at Yun Jian with fear for the first time. He felt that his sister, who had returned to the Wei family after being separated for 10 years, was so mysterious and scary. Wei Lin. What did you do to Big Brother? Big Brother is representing the Wei family in the fencing competition 3 days later. What did you go through outside? Why are you so vicious? Wei Min did not hesitate to shout at Yun Jian when she saw that. Wei Min wasn't stupid. She spoke to Yun Jian in such a way in front of Luo Jiejun because it would be abnormal if she wasn't angry at Yun Jian. Vicious. Yun Jian sneered when she heard Wei Min's words. You even want to poison your own brother. You've already lost your mind. Wei Lin, I sincerely welcome you back to the Wei family. As your elder sister, I have been worried about your safety day and night for the past 10 years that you were separated from me. I was so worried that I woke up in the middle of the night. I dreamed that you were crying and shouting that you were scared and wanted to go home. When I woke up at night, I couldn't stop crying because I was worried about you. But you even wanted to harm our own brother. How did you become like this? As Wei Min spoke, tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. Those who didn't know would really think that Wei Min was sad and worried about Yun Jian. She played the role of a good sister perfectly. In fact, Wei Min was indeed so frightened that she woke up in the middle of the night. Due to Wei Lin's disappearance, she was so frightened that she couldn't stop crying. That was because Wei Min had dreamt that she had purposely fabricated the story of her younger sister, Wei Lin, who had accidentally gone missing. She had dreamt that Wei Lin had died and had turned into a malicious spirit to seek revenge. Therefore, Wei Min had been scared awake and cried. This was completely true. Then, what kind of person did you think I was in the beginning? Just as Wei Min was crying in front of everyone with the face of a good sister, Yun Jian's voice suddenly rang out. Kind-hearted. Bullied by you. From what you're saying, it seems that you're all right. After Yun Jian finished speaking, her red arc rose. In the next second, the rising red arc fell. Luo Jiejun and the others were taken aback by the nonchalant look on her face. What she said next rang out abruptly and echoed throughout the hall, "You're right. You're right. I'm sorry, I'm not that kind of person. Vicious. I'll be very responsible to tell you that a group of people once said that I was the most terrifying devil in the world. I think the word vicious is an underestimation of me. So, if you want to see how vicious I can be, you can give it a try. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2339. Normally, when a girl heard others say that she was vicious, she would either try to defend herself or try her best to salvage the vicious image she left in front of others. However, Luo Jiejun, Hong Ling, Wei Zhe, and everyone else present had never seen someone like Yun Jian. When people said that she had a vicious heart, they were comparing her to a vicious villain. However, not only did she admit that she had a vicious heart, she even said such words to everyone present. The scariest demon in the world. Then, he thought about what Yun Jian said to Ling Qianqian when she faced her. Luo Jiejun's eyes turned sharp. What kind of past did she have? Why was it that the more he wanted to get closer to her and the more he wanted to understand her, the more secrets he discovered about her? Where had she been for the past 10 years? What kind of life had she lived? In spite of that, Luo Jiejun's interest in Yun Jian grew as more and more secrets piled up on her. He wanted to pry open her inner world and see what she had gone through in the past. If Luo Jiejun had looked at Yun Jian differently before, then at this moment, Luo Jiejun's curiosity about Yun Jian had been completely aroused. Yun Jian's words had a magical power that made people unable to remain calm. For some reason, after Wei Min heard Yun Jian's words, she couldn't help but shiver. Then, she stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds. She was about to speak. Miss Xiao Xiao, bad news. Something has happened. Something big has happened. Hurry and come back with me. Just as Wei Min was about to speak, a hurried voice sounded. Looking closely, the person who came was actually the Wei family's head butler, someone sent by the Wei family's old master, Wei Xiao. Suddenly seeing the Wei family's head butler rushing to the school to find her, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. In the next second, she didn't want to be entangled with Wei Min and the others. She quickly caught up with the Wei family's head butler and walked back to the Wei family. Before the Wei family's head butler left, he stopped Wei Min, Wei Zhe, and the others. Please don't go together. Something big has happened. If the young masters and young ladies go together, they might lose their lives. What about her? She's already gone. As a man, I can't back out. Luo Jiejun said as he pushed the Wei family's head steward aside and followed after him. Wei Min liked Luo Jiejun, so she naturally couldn't watch Luo Jiejun go alone. And Wei Zhe wanted to protect his sister, so he naturally followed along. As for Luo Jichen and Hong Ling, because they were brothers, they also followed. On the way, the Wei family's head butler explained the situation clearly. A group of people rushed into the house and captured Old Master. They even let me out and asked me to bring young Miss back within an hour. Otherwise, they will. The head steward of the Wei clan stopped speaking at this point. However, everyone present could feel that returning to the Wei clan would definitely be a battle of life and death. Yun Jian got out of the car and said to them coldly, "You don't have to come here to die. They're targeting me." With that, Yun Jian walked towards the entrance of the Wei residence. "I'll go with you. I'm strong enough to protect you," Luo Jiajun said. But just as Luo Jiajun said this, he saw that Yun Jian had already arrived at the entrance of the Wei residence. Before stepping into the Wei residence, Luo Jiajun and the others suddenly saw Yun Jian take off her cotton-padded clothes. She was wearing a black tights and black tights underneath. There were countless knives and pistols strapped to her thighs and waist. There was also an eagle claw strapped to the back of her waist. She looked even more like a special agent in the movies. Luo Jiajun was stunned when he saw this. Wei Min, Wei Zhe, Hong Ling, and Luo Jiachen were stunned as well. The head butler of the Wei clan was also stunned. However, just as everyone was stunned, they heard a sniper rifle sweep toward Yun Jian. At that moment, Yun Jian tilted her head. In the next second, she pulled out 2 butterfly knives from her thighs and held them in her hands. With the blades pointed downwards, she rushed into the Wei residence's entrance. But in the next second, Yun Jian's actions frightened the few people who couldn't react in time. Their faces turned ashen. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2340. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Guessing Yun Jian's True Identity, page 1/1, in front of everyone present. Yun Jian held the butterfly knives tightly with both hands. The blades of the knives were pointed downwards as she dodged the sniper's bullets. It was as if she knew exactly what path the sniper would take to shoot her. Left, right, front, back. Every dodge was a dangerous move. She managed to avoid the sniper's bullets from afar. There were a few times when she missed by just a few millimeters and would have died. As for the snipers who were shooting at Yun Jian, it was obvious that they were going to kill her. The bullets from the sniper were like a scene in a rain of bullets. Dozens of people were sniping at Yun Jian from high up in the air, and Yun Jian was always able to escape at the crucial moment of life and death. Her skills, her capability, and her various performances were as if she was born in a world of bullets and bullets. Just as she had said earlier. She had said that Ling Qianqian's life was something she had never dared to imagine before. In her world, as long as she dared to close her eyes and sleep, someone would send her to her death. If she wanted to live, her hands had to be stained with blood. In order to live, she would not hesitate to kill everyone around her, including her friends. In the past, Luo Jiajun and the others did not believe Yun Jian's words. Who did she think she was? A world-class figure. Someone wanted to kill her just because she was asleep. But just now, Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, and the others suddenly realized something. When they saw Yun Jian moving so nimbly in the rain of bullets, they were stunned. Their first reaction after being stunned was panic. They had heard from the Wei family's butler that the group of people had kidnapped Wei Xiao to capture the Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin. Just as everyone was thinking about this, Yun Jian entered the Wei family's house under the sniper's bullets and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, and the others were scared pale. Part of the reason was because of Yun Jian's ability to dodge bullets. Another part was because Yun Jian's actions were exactly the same as the world she had described not long ago. She was someone from the rain of bullets. Then who was her true identity? Luo Jiajun furrowed his brows. His face was full of shock. He looked in the direction Yun Jian went and fell into deep thought. F***CK. 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 Wei Lin, she. Not only is she good at fixing phones, she's also amazing. Luo Jiejun, Luo Mu, Luo translation for translation, Yun Jian's words Luo Jiu translation, Yun Jian translation, Yun Jian Luo. Translation. Is Yun Jian. Wei Min was also stunned. Then, she swallowed a mouthful of saliva and turned her head to Luo Jiejun. She asked Luo Jiejun in a trembling voice, Brother Jiejun, no matter how powerful she is, she's still no match for you, right? When she asked this, Wei Min spoke to Luo Jiejun in an uncertain tone, but she desperately hoped that she was speaking in the right tone. However, as soon as she said this, Wei Min heard Luo Jiejun speak. Based on what happened just now, I'm still not sure who's more powerful between me and her. But one thing I'm sure of is that if it were me, there's no way I'd be able to rush into the Wei family's house alive under so many sniper rifles. As soon as he said this, Wei Zhe, Hongling, Luo Jiejun, and Wei Min were all stunned. Then, they all shut their mouths. The Wei family's youngest daughter, Wei Lin, who had been lost for 10 years and was finally found. Where had she been for the past 10 years? What kind of life had she been living? Why would her enemies come looking for her? What kind of identity and status did she have in the world she spoke of? Who exactly was she? Just as everyone was deep in thought, Hongling suddenly recalled something. He turned his head abruptly and looked at everyone. He immediately said in a shocked tone, could it be as she said, that she really came from an assassin organization? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2341. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, she's from an assassin organization. How is this possible? Wei Min refuted loudly and exaggeratedly before anyone could react to Hongling's words. How is that not possible? Min, I remember that your sister was only 8 years old when she was lost, right? Moreover, she was kidnapped into a van and taken away right in front of you. Their assassin organization likes to kidnap girls like this to train their assassins or agents. Your sister was only 8 years old then. It's normal for her to be sent to an assassin organization and undergo inhumane training. Hongling obviously had some understanding of the International Assassin Organization. That was why he was able to make such a clear statement in front of everyone. If Wei Lin was really from an assassin organization, it would not be unreasonable for her to be so powerful. However, everyone knew that the special agents or killers who could come out of the assassin organization were all very powerful people. Wei Min could not convince herself that Yun Jian was a powerful person. Why? She had been separated from Wei Lin for so many years. She received so much attention the moment she came back. She was even kidnapped to an assassin organization and was even more powerful than her when she came back. This shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Then what was the point of her tricking the 8-year-old Wei Lin and throwing her away? The people in the van did not pay attention to Hongling's words. Even Hongling himself was just spouting nonsense. However, no one expected Wei Min to react so strongly. For a moment, everyone in the van had their own thoughts. Around the Wei family mansion. There were many men with guns standing around the Wei family mansion. They were walking back and forth around the mansion. It was obvious that this group of people had Wei Xiao and the rest of the Wei family under control. At the back door of the Wei family mansion, 2 men with guns were walking back and forth. There were many people who looked the same as these 2 men standing around the Wei family mansion. Even if there was any news, it would not escape their eyes. Tsk tisk. Just then, 2 soft sounds were heard. As soon as the sound rang out, a gust of wind blew past and covered the subtle sound of a knife piercing into a person's flesh. Two butterfly knives stabbed into the hearts of the two men who were walking around the back door of the Wei residence with guns in their hands. A figure rolled out from the bushes. Yun Jian pulled out the butterfly knife from the two men's hearts. The two men didn't even have time to make a sound before they breathed their last. After putting away the butterfly knife, Yun Jian grabbed the back of the two men's collars and threw them into the tall grass. Then, she flashed into the Wei family's villa. Outside the Wei family's villa, there were so many people waiting to capture Yun Jian that not even a fly could sneak into the Wei family's villa. However, no one knew that someone had already snuck into the back door of the Wei clan's villa, the Wei clan's main hall. The old master of the Wei clan, Wei Xiao, and his wife, Wang Ruoya, were tied up in the middle of the Wei clan's main hall. Standing in front of him was an old man in his 60s. This old man, who was about 60 years old, was standing in place with a face full of hatred. He saw the Wei family's door open and a subordinate walk in. When he saw his subordinate, the old man frowned and asked, "Is she dead?" "No." 30 snipers locked onto her at the same time, but she dodged all the bullets from the sniper rifles. She escaped. The subordinate's heart trembled as he spoke in fear. "Trash." The old man walked over and kicked the underling in the abdomen, sending the underling flying 10 meters away. Wei Xiao and his wife, Wang Ruoya, couldn't help but tremble in fear when they heard the subordinate's words. 30 snipers had attacked a single person, yet that person had still managed to escape alive. Who was this person to have such heaven-defying strength? Just as everyone in the hall was panicking, an indifferent female voice suddenly rang out. Her flat and indifferent words startled the fear in everyone's hearts. "The boss of T Nation's underground black market, Limu. You're really in the mood. I haven't settled the score with you for the failed assassination last time, and you've come knocking on my door today." Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2342. Page 1/1. That's right, Limu was the boss of Country T's underground black market. He was also the mastermind behind the assassination attempt on Yun Jian a few days ago. A few days ago, the group of people suddenly fired machine guns at Yun Jian, but Yun Jian snatched the machine guns away. Just as she was about to reveal the mastermind behind the assassination attempt, she said the word, and was shot from a high altitude. At the same time, as the boss of Country T's underground black market, Limu was also the biological father of Xian Yu, whom Yun Jian killed in Marilena's tomb. Outsiders only knew that Xian Yu worked for Country T's underground black market boss Limu, but they didn't know that Limu was Xian Yu's biological father. Today, Limu found Yun Jian and sent people to assassinate Yun Jian. It wasn't hard to explain that he wanted to take revenge on Yun Jian for his son Xian Yu. Woo woo woo. Woo woo. When Wang Ruoya saw Yun Jian, she almost fainted. Because her mouth was covered, Wang Ruoya could only blow air into her mouth. Yun Jian's current identity was Wang Ruoya's youngest daughter, Wei Lin. When Wang Ruoya saw Yun Jian, she thought that she had come back to die, so she tried her best to make Yun Jian leave as soon as possible. Wei Xiao knew that Yun Jian wasn't her biological daughter, so she didn't have much of a reaction. When Limu saw Yun Jian, his entire body trembled. Then, Limu's subordinates who were armed with machine guns surrounded Yun Jian as well. "You!" Limu did not expect Yun Jian to avoid being surrounded by the people he had brought with him outside the Wei family's villa and arrive at the living room so quickly. His expression changed abruptly. "As expected, you're just like your son Xian Yu. You have a strong presence, but in reality, you're a useless piece of trash." In front of Limu's subordinates who were holding machine guns, Yun Jian crossed her arms lazily and pursed her lips. She didn't look afraid at all. You. How do you know Xian Yu is my son?" Limu was stunned, and wanted to say something. In the eyes of outsiders, Xianyu and Limu's relationship was just Xianyu following Limu's gang, that was all. The number of people who knew that Xianyu was his biological son could be counted on one hand. The strength of the young girl in front of him had greatly exceeded his expectations. Just as Limu was about to speak, Yunjian didn't give him the chance. Facing the dozen or so machine guns in front of her, she took 2 steps forward without a hint of fear, then spoke to Limu in front of everyone. "Old thing, didn't you investigate me before you sent someone to assassinate me?" When Limu heard Yunjian's words, his heart skipped a beat. He really didn't investigate Yunjian's specific identity. But after he found out that Yunjian killed his son, he immediately sent people to assassinate Yunjian. What do you mean by that? Chapter 2343. Limu did investigate Yunjian, but he didn't investigate Yunjian's identity. He only found out that Yunjian was the person who killed his son Xianyu. She was just a little girl in her teens. What could she possibly do? Limu didn't even investigate Yunjian's actual identity. He only investigated Yunjian's basic identity before he brought his men to assassinate Yunjian. Limu almost went crazy because he wanted to avenge his son Xianyu. But he forgot to use his authority to investigate Yunjian's identity on the biggest intelligence platform. There was an international intelligence platform that specialized in collecting information. It was connected to the Kosha mercenaries intelligence team. This intelligence platform was formed by many internationally renowned intelligence groups, such as Gu Sha Mercenaries Intelligence Group. It was an integrated platform. And on this intelligence platform, any information, even international news, as long as one paid, could be inquired about. It could be said that this was the gathering point of the intelligence platform. The informant who answered Limu's call just now was the staff of the intelligence platform who had found out that Yunjian was the one who killed Xianyu after his death. When Limu looked at Yunjian, his face was pale with fright. Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya were confused. Limu's subordinates were stunned and didn't know what to do. "Dad! Mom!" A panicked female voice came from the bathroom in the living room. Everyone turned to look and saw Wei Min standing near the bathroom not far from the living room. She was looking at Limu and his men with fear in her eyes. The Wei family was like the Luo family and Hong family, one of the 3 big families in Piluo City. They all relied on the underworld to make their fortune. In the beginning, they were worried that they would be hunted down by their enemies if they switched to the legal side. So, when the Wei family villa was being built, they built an underground secret tunnel. Wei Min and her men used the underground secret tunnel to avoid the group of people outside the Wei family villa and return to the Wei family villa. Woo! Woo woo woo. Wei Xiao didn't react when he saw Yunjian, but when he saw his daughter Wei Min and son Wei Zhe bringing a group of friends back to the Wei family, he started to shake his head desperately to signal them to run. But Wei Min didn't understand her father's meaning at all. She looked at Limu with fear and said to Limu, "Let go of my dad. Wei Lin caused this trouble, don't implicate my parents." As she spoke, Wei Min turned to Yunjian and spat with a hateful glare, "Yunjian, you're the one who's going to die. Wei Lin, you're too much. I really wanted you to come back to the Wei family, but you actually wanted to harm father and mother because of you." Before Wei Min could finish her words, Limu was the international intelligence platform was one of the top 10 public in the world. Is one of the top 10 people in the world. Most people knew about the international intelligence platform. Even Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, and Wei Min knew about it. Everyone knew that the international intelligence platform was a place where you could get all the information you wanted as long as you were willing to pay the corresponding price. However, there was an exception in the international intelligence platform. That was, there were 10 public biographies and ambiguous portraits posted in the center of the international intelligence platform. The 10 resumes and portraits represented 10 people. These 10 people were the public figures of the International Intelligence Platform. No matter how much money the employer offered, the people of the International Intelligence Platform wouldn't dare to investigate their identities. It could be said that even the people of the International Intelligence Platform didn't dare to provoke those 10 people. They were afraid and terrified of them. That was a symbol of power, status, and identity. Limu's words spread throughout the venue, causing everyone to be stunned. However, before everyone could react to Limu's words, Limu had already stared at Yunjian in front of everyone. Once again, he used a voice that was trembling with fear to ask Yunjian, "Just now, the people of the International Intelligence Platform said that you're one of them. You're really one of the top 10 people in the world that they can't afford to provoke out of the 10 public portraits of the International Intelligence Platform. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2344. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. The International Intelligence Platform was located in the busiest part of Country M, and at the entrance of the first floor of the International Intelligence Platform Central Building, there were 10 portraits of people that everyone knew. Some of the portraits only had a black shadow and a rough outline, and it was hard to tell if the person was male or female. However, all 10 portraits had their own unique characteristics. For example, they held a weapon that they were used to using, or they had a symbolic tattoo on their body, or they had a broken finger, or they had a scar on their face. However, there was no doubt that the people in the portraits were all people whose names were enough to make the International Intelligence Platform tremble. At the bottom of the 10 portraits, there were also simple biographies of the people in the portraits, which were known to all. Moreover, these 10 portraits were marked with the words "one of the top 10 most untouchable people in the world." Furthermore, the International Intelligence Platform's people publicly stated that no intelligence team would dare to investigate the people in the portraits. No matter how much money they offered, they would refuse to investigate the people in the portraits. This matter was not considered a secret, it was made public on the International Intelligence Platform, and anyone who knew a little about it knew about it. Therefore, when Lai Mu repeated the same words to Yun Jian, whether it was Luo Jiajun, Luo Jiachen, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, Hong Ling, or even Wei Xiao and his wife Wang Ruoya who were tied up and gagged by Lai Mu's people, all of them were stunned. When everyone heard Lai Mu repeat the same words, they were stunned on the spot, their mouths forming an O shape, their eyes unblinking, and their expressions changing drastically. Not to mention Luo Jiajun and the others, even Lai Mu's group of brothers were stunned. They held their machine guns in their hands and did not move an inch. Everyone's expression could not escape the word fear. When Luo Jiajun heard this, he was the first to recover from his shock, and he was the first to speak to Lai Mu in shock. The International Intelligence Platform's people said that she was one of the people in the portraits. The International Intelligence Platform you're talking about, is it the famous International Intelligence Platform formed by all the major international intelligence teams? Luo Jiajun rarely asked questions with such a stunned expression. Luo Jiajun, the young master of the Luo family and the future heir of the Luo group, who had always been mature and steady, had the demeanor of doing great things, uttered such words with such an expression. This was the first time Wei Min had seen something like this since she was young. Therefore, even Wei Min, who did not know about the 10 portraits on the International Intelligence Platform, had an incredible feeling for a moment. That's right, it's that platform. Lai Mu panicked. Just now, when he asked the staff of the International Intelligence Platform Center to investigate Yun Jian's identity, the staff of the International Intelligence Platform Center directly refused him. They also said that Yun Jian was one of the 10 portraits, so the International Intelligence Platform Center, which claimed to be the world's top intelligence platform, had no way of tracking down Yun Jian's specific identity. Limu was, after all, someone who had been through a lot. He knew very well that in this world, if he met a strong opponent, he could not fight them head-on. I'm sorry for offending you just now. I hope you can forgive me. About my son Xianyu, I'll use the previous 2 unintentional assassinations as compensation. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. Let's go. Limu immediately saluted Yunjian, then gestured for his men to walk towards the door. Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, and the rest instantly heaved a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether Yunjian was one of the 10 portraits on the international intelligence platform or not, it was a good thing that Limu decided to stop, so this matter would not implicate the Wei family. However, just as Luo Jiajun and the rest thought that Yunjian was purposely minimizing this matter, they saw Yunjian standing at the same spot in front of everyone. She said arrogantly to Limu, who had yet to rush out of the Wei family's door. I'll give you 1 hour. If you can escape from Z country's borders, I'll let you go. If you can't, then, go to hell. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2345. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. How arrogant. How arrogant. She was more than arrogant. Everyone heard Yunjian's words, especially Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, and Wei Min. Even if she really was one of the 10 portraits of the international intelligence platform that Lai Mu had mentioned, and was listed as one of the top 10 most untouchable people in the world, she was only one person. What about Lai Mu and his men? They were armed with lethal weapons and a large group of people. Yunjian was outnumbered. Lai Mu had just spared the Wei family and turned to leave, and Yunjian called out to him again and said such words. She's crazy. The boss of Country T's black market had already retreated, but she still called out to him and said such provocative words. I really treat Lin, as my sister, but not only are we still here, even our parents are still trapped. She wants to send us into the fire pit. Wei Min hid behind Luo Jiajun, Wei Zhe, and Hong Ling. To an outsider, Wei Min's words sounded right. She was praising Yunjian in front of Luo Jiajun and the rest. Wei Min did not dare to say these words loudly. She only dared to say them in front of Luo Jiajun and the rest to sow discord. As for Lai Mu, after hearing Yunjian's words, he stopped in his tracks. Pausing, Limu was taken aback. He did not reply to Yunjian after that as he led his men outside. Not long after, the battlefield that seemed to be filled with smoke quickly returned to normal. Dad! Mom! Wei Min was the first to rush up and untie Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya's bindings and gagged mouths. Yunjian did not even look at Wei Xiao and Wang Ruoya as she walked up the stairs. Wei Lin, you're too much. Mom and Dad are tied up here because of you. After that person left with his men, you didn't even care about them and just walked up the stairs. You're too inhumane. Wei Zhe called out Yunjian's name. His face was dark as he spoke. As Yunjian's elder brother in name, Wei Zhe looked at Yunjian and asked in dissatisfaction after he said that, what do you think? What's going on with you? What's with the 10 portraits of the international intelligence platform? What's going on? Now that Mom and Dad are here, you'd better explain yourself. What did you do before you returned to the Wei family? What was your identity? Tell me clearly before you leave. What Wei Zhe said was what Luo Jiajun, Hong, and Luo Jiachen wanted to know as well. Hence, everyone looked at Yunjian with scrutiny after Wei Zhe spoke. Yun was. She was halfway up the stairs when she heard Wei Zhe. She was already halfway. She was. She was. Then, she turned around in front of everyone and stared at them coldly. Suddenly, she uttered something that sent chills down their spines. From today onwards, don't let me hear any of you asking about my past. Otherwise, this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. It did not sound like a joke. After hearing this, the few people present trembled violently. No one said a word as they watched Yunjian disappear down the stairs. An hour later. In Yunjian's bedroom. Pressing the button to answer the call, Qingyu's voice came from the other end. Sister Jian, Limu, and the others have escaped from Country Z within an hour. Yunjian pressed her lips together when she heard what Qingyu said as her eyes flickered. They had really escaped from Country Z within an hour. In the next second, Yunjian ordered Qingyu softly with a smirk, "Kill them with all you've got. Don't leave a single one alive." Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2346. She, Yunjian, had never been a good person who kept her word. The words, "keep your promises," had always been targeted at the target. For a weed who had tried to assassinate her twice, Yunjian's usual practice was to not leave a single strand of it alive. Yes. Qingyu, who was familiar with Yunjian, nodded when she heard Yunjian's words and agreed with Yunjian decisively. Yunjian hung up the call and tossed her phone to the bedside table before closing her eyes to sleep. Yunjian woke up early the next day. She got out of bed early and went for a morning run to the academy as usual. There were already many classmates in the classroom when she first entered the academy. Yunjian walked to her seat with practiced ease. Morning. Luo Jichen stood up to greet Yunjian when he saw her today. He greeted Yunjian almost immediately. Yunjian nodded and returned to her seat. Nothing worth mentioning happened until the night before the fencing competition. School ended very late that night, mainly because Yunjian's class teacher had delayed the class, so it was almost 9:00 when school ended. Yunjian walked out at 9:00 at night. Luo Jichen followed behind Yunjian like a shadow. At the same time, he chuckled at Yunjian. "Wei Lin, I didn't expect you to be so amazing. I don't mean anything else. I'm not trying to find out about your process. I'm just telling you about it. Also, I'll be your underling from now on. The kind that follows behind your butt, hee." Luo Jichen was still following Yunjian to the academy's entrance. They were only halfway there. The sound of a police siren suddenly rang out. Yunjian raised her eyebrows. A police car sped into the academy. "I heard that someone died in the toilet. They're all dead now. It seems like a suicide or a homicide. The police car is here now." "What? Someone died in our academy? This can't be real, right? How could it be fake?" During the last night's self-study class, a girl in our class needed to pee and went to the toilet. Guess what happened? She walked into the toilet and opened the toilet door. Just as she was about to use the toilet, she found a corpse. The people who came back were scared silly. After the school confirmed it, they immediately called the police. "Oh my God. Is that a student from our school committing suicide? Who knows? Probably." Two girls walked past them and were talking in a very soft voice. Although their voices were soft, Yunjian and Luo Jichen were both martial artists. They immediately heard what the two girls were saying. **CK, I was wondering why it was so noisy during the last night's self-study session. It was as if something big had happened. He's dead." Luo Jichen was shocked when he heard what the two girls said. Yunjian's eyes moved, but her face was calm as if it had nothing to do with her. "Let's go." Yunjian walked out of the academy. When something like this happened, the most innocent party was the school, and the most pitiful ones were the students' parents. However, she still had to go home. The next morning, Yoon Jian went to school as usual. However, because of the murder, the school had to postpone the fencing competition. Since last night, the police and related personnel had been working through the night. They had not been able to close their eyes until now. Their spirit was indeed commendable. In the middle of the class, 2 police officers suddenly appeared outside the classroom. Everyone in the classroom was shocked when they saw the police officers. At the same time, a younger police officer walked into the classroom. He scanned the classroom and immediately asked, "Hello, everyone. Hello, students. Is there a student called Wei Lin in your class? Can you ask her to come out for a moment? Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, wonderful book mobile version website, .com. You're still young, and that scene will scare you until you can't sleep." Needless to say, even he felt that it was a little creepy when he saw it. Yoon Jian didn't reply to the policeman. Instead, she suddenly asked in front of Luo Jiejun and the others, "Have the police contacted a forensic doctor?" A forensic doctor was a type of forensic expert in the country. According to the laws and regulations and industry standards, they used various techniques or methods to conduct a medical investigation on the scene, autopsy, symptom analysis, identification of relics, and a series of methods to investigate the real culprit. To put it simply, a forensic doctor was a person who relied on autopsy to investigate the cause of death of the deceased, or to investigate the details of the environment to find the real culprit and give justice to the deceased. Not yet. But we've already sent someone to contact them. After hearing Yoon Jian's words, the policeman was stunned and immediately replied. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2348. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Forensic doctors dealt with corpses and even used scalpels to dissect corpses when necessary to determine if the deceased was a homicide or a suicide. Forensic doctors were different from traditional doctors in that they could not treat illnesses or save lives. But in a sense, forensic doctors and doctors had something in common. For example, the courses of forensic science and medical science would overlap in the first few years, but in the later internship, the courses of forensic science students and medical science students would be separated. Forensic doctors dealt with corpses all year round, so when normal people heard the word forensic doctor, they would be shocked and would not want to come into contact with this person. This also caused the number of people who studied forensic medicine to be very small. In the entire Puluo city, which was a metropolis with a population of millions, there were less than 50 forensic doctors. Those who were good at it were even fewer. Yoon Jian, on the other hand, was just the youngest daughter of the Wei family who had just been found. There were rumors that she was one of the 10 portraits on the International Intelligence Platform and was listed as one of the most untouchable people in the world. But so what? So far, other than Limu's words, there was no evidence. And what was the highest medical institution in the world of international medicine? It was the place where forensic doctors gathered in the entire world. There were very few people in the medical profession, and it was an arduous and thankless job. However, those who were at the top of the world of forensic medicine were highly respected. Once you achieved something in your profession and stood at the top of the world, those who did not think highly of you would change their opinion of you. In the world of forensic medicine, those who could enter the highest medical institution in the world of forensic medicine were undoubtedly people who stood at the top of the world of forensic medicine. Therefore, when Yoon Jian finished speaking, everyone was shocked. One must know that a forensic doctor who wanted to enter the highest medical institution in the world had to go through many trials and tests. A normal forensic doctor would need to be at least 30 years old to have the ability to enter the highest medical institution in the world. According to the latest news from the highest medical institution in the world, the youngest person to be specially invited to the highest medical institution in the world was a 28-year-old male forensic doctor. This male forensic doctor was the youngest person in the history of the highest medical institution in the world to be invited to the highest medical institution in the world. And Yunjian. She was only 18 years old. Wei. Lin, what are you talking about? Our Wei family has never had a forensic doctor. Really, where did you get this fake ID from? What happened at school yesterday has nothing to do with the Wei family. Don't take it all on our Wei clan. When Wei Min heard what Yunjian said, she almost blurted out her full name at Yunjian, but she held it in. Not only did she have to take into account her reputation as a good sister, but she also had to say these words with a fake smile. Wei Min was really quite tired. When the policeman heard Wei Min's words, he was misled by Wei Min and thought that Yunjian had a fake ID. There's even a replica of the International Supreme Forensic Academy's seal here. Lin. Son. I really didn't know that you were so capable. As Wei Min spoke, she found a seal at the bottom right corner of Yunjian's document. When they heard Wei Min say that Yunjian's ID was fake, Luo Zhejun, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe naturally had no reason not to believe it. After all, with Yunjian's age, and her being a special guest of the highest medical institution, no one would believe it even if they said it out loud. However, when Wei Min finished speaking and Luo Zhejun and the others thought that Yunjian was lying, the policeman suddenly rushed in front of Yunjian and carefully examined the seal at the bottom right corner of Yunjian's ID. Just when Wei Min, Luo Zhejun, and the others thought that the policeman would accuse Yunjian of faking the ID, they saw the policeman speaking to Yunjian in a very respectful tone. This seal is really personally printed by the president of the highest medical institution in the world. With the assistance of the medical examiner from the highest medical institution in the world, there's no way for anything to go wrong. Mr. Medical Examiner, thank you for your hard work. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2349. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. When the police were investigating cases, there would often be cases of unnatural deaths that were suspected to be homicides. At this time, forensic science played a huge role. There were even cases where the deceased would be disguised as suicide. If there was no forensic science at this time, then the deceased would have died unjustly, and the murderer would be free. Forensic science was the source of these cases. That was why forensic science was a very respectable profession. The police officer recognized the seal as he had seen it on the news before. The seal of the International Supreme Court was not something that could be easily imitated by outsiders. For a forensic science that was worthy of respect, the police officer gave Yunjian the highest respect. Hearing this, Yunjian squinted her eyes and nodded. Police officer. How's the investigation of Lin Jiaoyue's case? Yesterday, when Lin Jiaoyue's parents heard the news, they both fainted and were sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. Lin Jiaoyue's father said that if the school and the police did not give him an explanation, he would. So I'm here to ask about the situation. A mature man's urgent voice sounded. Yunjian turned her head and saw a middle-aged man in his 40s standing in front of her. Lin Jiaoyue was the real name of the deceased, Sister Biao. It was hard to imagine that such a boorish girl like Sister Biao would have such a literary and ladylike name. But if one only looked at Sister Biao's appearance, she was so petite that she was only slightly shorter than Yunjian. Her perfect figure matched Lin Jiaoyue's literary and ladylike name. You are Lin Jiayue's class teacher, right? The police officer looked at the middle-aged man in his 40s and asked. Yes. The middle-aged man nodded. This middle-aged man was Sister Biao's class teacher, Teacher Yang. The case has already begun its investigation. I believe there will be a result soon. If you are still worried, you can come with us to take a look. At the same time, you can also provide information about Lin Jiayue's current situation and relationships in school. The police officer looked at Teacher Yang and said. Okay. As long as you can find the unpardonable murderer, I will definitely cooperate with you. Teacher Yang listened and quickly nodded. Yes. The policeman nodded at Mr. Yang, then turned to look at Yun Jian and extended his hand to Yun Jian. Let me formally introduce myself. My surname is Zhou. You can call me Captain Zhou. I am the person in charge of the investigation of this case. Yun Jian didn't reach out, but she nodded. Wei Lin. Seeing Yun Jian and Captain Zhou walking toward the crime scene, Luo Jiejun and Wei Min gulped. You guys go back first. I'll follow them and see what's going on. Luo Jiejun couldn't help but retort. With that, Luo Jiejun chased after Yun Jian. I'll go too. When Wei Min heard this, she gritted her teeth and quickly followed. When Wei Zhe and Hong Ling saw this, they naturally couldn't just leave on their own, and the two of them chased after him. The crime scene is right in front of us. The victim was found in the girls' toilet on the west side of the school. As far as we know, during the last class of the evening self-study period, the victim asked for leave from the teacher to go to the toilet because she needed to pee. Later, the victim's head was found soaked in the toilet pit. It's suspected that she was soaked in the water in the toilet pit and suffocated to death. Captain Zhou took the lead and led Yun Jian in that direction, talking as they walked. Captain Zhou paused and said, the body is still in the girls' toilet on the west side of the school. Because it's suspected to be a homicide, the crime scene hasn't been changed in order to investigate the case thoroughly. After hearing Captain Zhou's words, Yun Jian only responded softly. At this time, Luo Jiejun had already taken the lead and ran to Yun Jian's side. He was a little out of breath from running. After grabbing a handful of his short black hair, Luo Jiejun spoke to Yun Jian. Can you do it? A forensic doctor has to face a corpse. You're a girl, aren't you afraid? No matter what, Yun Jian was just an 18-year-old girl in the prime of her youth. Moreover, although Yun Jian had shown extraordinary strength in front of everyone before, she had never killed or seen a dead person in public. Therefore, Luo Jiejun was very doubtful. After hearing Luo Jiejun's words, Yun Jian, whose path was blocked, stopped in her tracks. She coldly looked at Luo Jiejun with contempt and said indifferently, I've killed more people than you've peed in your entire life. Do you think a corpse can scare me? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2350. Page 1/1, Pee that has been spilled. These 4 words stunned everyone present. Logically speaking, such words coming out of the mouth of an 18-year-old girl would more or less carry a trace of awkwardness, unnaturalness, rudeness, and shamelessness. But when these words came out of Yun Jian's mouth, there was no sense of contradiction at all. However, what made Luo Jiejun, Wei Min, Wei Zhe, and Hong Ling, who had caught up with them, suddenly stunned was not the metaphor of these 4 words, but, had she, Yun Jian, killed someone before? Even Captain Zhou couldn't help but raise his eyebrows in surprise when he heard Yun Jian's words. It's just a joke. Ignore them. When everyone present heard Yun Jian's words and felt shocked and terrified, Yun Jian's voice sounded again. These words were directed at Captain Zhou. Ha! Although the girl was young, she was still a forensic doctor at the International Supreme Court of Forensic Medicine. If she was really afraid of corpses, she would not have been able to enter the International Supreme Court of Forensic Medicine. You youngsters, if you're afraid, then don't come in. The victim's death was so tragic that I'm afraid it'll leave you with a shadow. Hurry up and leave. Captain Zhou was a very upright police officer. Before he brought Yun Jian into the crime scene, he waved at Luo Jiajun and the others. She's not afraid, and neither am I. I'll go in with you. Luo Jiajun couldn't help but refuse. I want to go too. When Wei Min saw that Luo Jiajun wanted to go in, she also spoke up. Yun Jian ignored Luo Jiajun and the others. She followed Captain Zhou and quickly entered the crime scene. Of course, before entering the crime scene, Captain Zhou gave Yun Jian a set of forensic tools. At that time, Yun Jian walked into the toilet and put on a pair of sterile gloves. Although Mr. Yang was also a little scared, he still followed them into the toilet. At this moment, Yun Jian was walking at the front. She didn't panic at all when she saw the corpse. As for Wei Min, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe, they followed closely behind Luo Jiajun. Luo Jiajun's forehead also broke out in cold sweat, but when he saw that Yun Jian was not afraid at all, he gritted his teeth and pretended not to be afraid at all and continued to follow her. Captain Zhou had already seen Sister Biao's corpse, so he was not afraid or flustered at all. By then, everyone had already arrived at the toilet pit where the corpse was found. The few people present suddenly saw a corpse lying not far away. Its head was slightly swollen from being soaked in water, its face was pale, its hands drooping, and its long black hair disheveled. Suddenly seeing this scene, Wei Min screamed. Then, she fiercely hugged Luo Jiajun and was so scared that her whole body trembled. Even Luo Jiajun's face turned pale when he saw this scene. Needless to say, the deceased was not far away. Not to mention Wei Min, Hong Ling, and Wei Zhe, even the bravest Luo Jiajun did not dare to walk forward. If you're afraid, you can leave first, Captain Zhou immediately said to Luo Jiajun and the others. I think I'd better leave first. Teacher Yang's face turned pale. He was a little frightened by the tragic state of the corpse. After saying this to everyone, he hurriedly left the place. However, just when everyone was afraid, even Captain Zhou, who had already seen the corpse of the deceased, was shaken by the atmosphere. His heart trembled slightly. Yun Jian suddenly walked directly to Sister Biao's corpse in front of everyone. She reached out her hand that was wearing a sterile glove and placed it on Sister Biao's eyes. Then, she lifted Sister Biao's eyelids and roughly checked. Seeing Yun Jian suddenly walk in front of the corpse, not only was she not afraid, she even lifted the corpse's eyelids. Even Luo Jiajun felt a chill run down his spine. When Wei Min saw this, she screamed and pointed at Yun Jian. She shouted, she's not afraid. She's really not afraid. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2351. Wei Min's chattering made Yun Jian frown. She scanned the floor before standing up and speaking to Captain Zhou. Send the body to the autopsy room and ask the parents if they're willing to let me do the autopsy. This is the fastest way to find out the truth. Even if someone died in an accident or was suspected to be a homicide or suicide, the forensic doctor would still need to seek the consent of the deceased's parents before he could do the autopsy. Okay. Captain Zhou responded and went out to get a few people to send the body to the autopsy room. He then sent someone to the hospital to ask about Sister Biao's parents. Yun Jian was already walking out of the washroom. Taking 2 steps, she glanced at Wei Min from the corner of her eyes and said coldly, "Shut your mouth and get away from me. Otherwise, I'll dissect you too." Hearing Yun Jian say that she would dissect her too, Wei Min was so scared that her face turned pale. She leaned on Luo Jiejun and said to Yun Jian, "Lin, how can you talk to your sister like that? I don't want to be a burden to you, but I can't shut my mouth." Wei Min grabbed Luo Jiejun's hand and said to Yun Jian innocently. However, just as she finished speaking, Yun Jian ignored Wei Min and walked out. Seeing this, Wei Min was furious in her heart. However, she still smiled at the few people present with a calm expression. "I'm fine. I'm afraid that my sister can't handle it alone, so I came in with her. It's fine. Let's continue to follow her. I'm afraid that she'll be bullied." She made it sound like Wei Min was only following Yun Jian because she was worried about Yun Jian's safety. "Min, you're such a good sister. Your sister already said that about you, but you're still not angry." Hearing Wei Min's words, Hong Ling was really fooled by Wei Min's appearance. She immediately flipped her short red hair and said to Wei Min. Sister Biao's body was quickly moved to the autopsy room. Captain Zhou also received the news that Sister Biao's parents agreed to the autopsy, but they requested that the culprit be caught and brought to justice. At that moment, Yun Jian had just changed into a surgical gown and was about to enter the autopsy room. Forensic doctors and doctors were very similar in some aspects. For example, dissection required a scalpel, and the surgeon also used a scalpel. The dissection also required the same surgical gown and sterile gloves as the doctors. Just as Yun Jian was about to step into the autopsy room, a middle-aged man in his 50s suddenly walked over and blocked Yun Jian's path. "I was the one who took over this case first. Even if you're from the top international forensic medical institution, you still have to follow the rules of our profession." The middle-aged man walked up to Yun Jian and said loudly. It turned out that before Yun Jian came forward, Captain Zhou had already sent someone to contact the forensic doctor. In the end, as soon as they agreed to help Yun Jian, the people on the other side had also successfully contacted the forensic doctor. The middle-aged man's surname was Hang, and he was the most famous forensic doctor in Piluo City. He had handled almost 1,000 cases in his life, and 800 of them were because of him alone. He had caught the real culprit and brought justice to the deceased. When he heard that a teenage girl had stolen his job, Hang medical examiner rushed over without saying anything. He had almost a lifetime of experience. So what if this little girl had the title of the highest international medical examiner? If her experience was not good enough, it was still useless. She did not have the ability. After hearing Hang medical examiner's words, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly and retorted rudely, "Come on, you'll probably never find the real culprit in this case." "What do you mean?" Hang medical examiner blew his beard and glared at her. "Literally." Yun Jian crossed her arms and sneered. "Then do you want to compete?" Hang medical examiner was unconvinced. Seeing the sudden change in the situation, Luo Jiejun, Captain Zhou, and the others were shocked. "There's no need for that." However, Yun Jian's indifferent voice was heard. Just as Hang medical examiner thought that Yun Jian was admitting defeat, he heard Yun Jian's arrogant words in front of everyone present. Her words shocked everyone present. "Because with your standard, you're not worthy of competing with me. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2352. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Hang medical examiner was a famous medical examiner in Piluo City. He had handled almost 1,000 cases and successfully found the real culprit in 800 cases. He was the one who brought justice to the deceased. This was because Hang medical examiner's observation was meticulous and could find clues from the scene of the crime. From these clues, he could solve the case completely. Whenever there was a trace of the murderer at the crime scene, Hang Medical Examiner would be able to see through it. Therefore, Hang Medical Examiner was very famous in Country Z's legal medical field. Because of Hang Medical Examiner's amazing ability, even outside of Puluo City, other provinces in Country Z would hire Hang Medical Examiner for help when they encountered difficult cases. This also fully demonstrated Hang Medical Examiner's great ability. What about Yun Jian? She actually said that Hang Medical Examiner's standard was not worthy of competing with her. Hang Medical Examiner was, after all, an extremely famous existence in Z country's medical field. What about her? Although she had a verified certificate from the highest international medical examiners institution, the certificate was just a form of writing. Hang Medical Examiner, at least in Country Z's legal medical field, was known by everyone. He was a real person who did the work. What about her? Even if she was from the highest international medical examiners institution, she was not even famous in the legal medical field before this. Sometimes, fame represented ability. What was the use of having the best certificate? Therefore, after hearing Yun Jian's words, Luo Jiejun, Hong Ling, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, and Captain Zhou, who had been standing at the side, could not help but twitch the corners of their mouths. No matter how good Yun Jian was, Hang Medical Examiner's ability was right there for all to see. How could a little girl like her, who was not famous in the legal medical field, be compared to her? However, the few people present did not know that Yun Jian was not famous in the legal medical field because she, Yun Jian, was hired as a special guest of the highest international medical examiners institution with a high price in the name of the hand of death, in the medical field. To put it bluntly, Yun Jian was hired by the highest international medical examiners institution to keep up appearances. Have you ever seen a big boss move bricks with his workers? Asking Yun Jian, the hand of death, to handle the case was harder than ascending to the heavens. Therefore, she had never been famous in the forensic science world. However, if the name Hand of the Grim Reaper was mentioned, her fame was enough to shock the entire world. It was not something that a forensic doctor from Hangzhou could compare to. Young lady, you're indeed capable. You've entered the top international medical academy at such a young age. I don't know if I have any hope of entering that place in my lifetime, but in terms of strength and experience, I'm not inferior to you. We'll know who's better once we compete. Otherwise, I think you don't even dare to compete with me. The one who doesn't deserve to compete with me is you. Dr. Hang was also a very stubborn person who refused to admit defeat. After hearing Yun Jian's words, he used the same words to refute her. If Hang Medical Examiner flinched, Yun Jian would look down on such a person. However, Hang Medical Examiner stood up and spoke to Yun Jian in the same unflinching tone. Seeing this, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She had changed her opinion of Hang Medical Examiner from her initial dislike. Wei Lin. Do you know what you're saying and doing? As your sister, I can't bear to see you make mistakes again and again. Why are you suddenly getting involved in this mess? Hurry up and come home with me. Wei Min felt that the more Yun Jian continued to speak, the more Luo Jiejun's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian. It was as if he was glued to Yun Jian and couldn't be pulled away. She was furious. After saying this, she walked over and acted as if her younger sister had done something wrong and was angry at her. As she spoke, she reached out to pull Yun Jian. However, just as Wei Min was about to reach out to pull Yun Jian didn't even look at Wei Min. She followed Wei Min's path and wrapped her hand around Wei Min's head like a snake's nimble body. Then, in front of everyone, Yun Jian looked at Medical Examiner Hang and pressed Wei Min's head against the corner of the wall. Just as Wei Min was about to suffocate from the pressure, Yun Jian suddenly grinned at Medical Examiner Hang and spoke as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. I suddenly feel that you're not bad. Let's compete and see who can find the murderer first. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2353. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. No one was surprised by Yunjian's sudden change in tone. Wei Min wanted to take Yunjian away, but Yunjian grabbed her by the head and pressed her against the wall. She almost suffocated and screamed for help. Og! Let go, Og, let go. I can't breathe. Brother Jun. Brother Jejun, save me. Wei Min was pressed against the wall and almost suffocated. Her first reaction was to ask Luo Jejun for help. Yunjian pinned Wei Min's head to the corner of the wall with one hand, but her eyes were on medical examiner Hang, acting like nothing had happened. Wei Lin. That's your sister. You've gone too far this time. Wei Zhe was the first to rush up and save Wei Min from Yunjian. Yunjian tossed Wei Min to Wei Zhe before he rushed over and slowly took out a napkin from her pants pocket to wipe her hand that had touched Wei Min's head just now. Wei Lin, what's the meaning of this? Wei Zhe finally managed to save Wei Min, but when he saw Yunjian wiping her hand in front of everyone, his face darkened. Wei Lin, I'm on Wei Min's side this time. You've gone too far. Luo Jejun's lips curled as he spoke to Yunjian like he was ordering her. Luo Jejun was high and mighty. In the past, whenever a girl spoke to him, the girl would be so excited that she couldn't sleep for a few days and nights. Hence, Luo Jejun's words always had a sense of superiority. Captain Zhou, tell me all the information you've collected about Lin Jiayue. However, whether it was Luo Jejun or Wei Zhe, Yunjian shouldn't ignore them. She crumpled the napkin into a ball and threw it into the trash can nearby without looking at it. Okay. Captain Zhou nodded and reported. According to the information I collected about Lin Jiayue this morning, there were only two major events that happened to Lin Jiayue recently. One was a few days ago. Lin Jiayue took the lead to bully a girl named Ling Qianqian. The other thing happened half a month ago. After a boy confessed to Lin Jiayue in public, Lin Jiayue humiliated him in public. According to insiders, after the boy was humiliated by Lin Jiayue, he lost all his love for Lin Jiayue and has been harboring hatred in his heart. He discussed with some other boys to teach Lin Jiayue a lesson. After Captain Zhou's words, everyone's eyes darkened. Only this much information. Then how should they investigate? Luo Jejun, Hong Ling, and the others were stunned. Just as Luo Jejun and the others were wondering where they should start with such a difficult case where there was no trace of the murderer at the scene, Yunjian suddenly spoke up. I'll go check Lin Jiayue's body. After that, Yunjian walked towards the autopsy room. Hang medical examiner also had the same idea, so he entered with Yunjian. Luo Jejun and the others pondered for a while before following him. At that moment, Yunjian had already lifted the white cloth covering the body on the operating table. From the looks of it, the deceased should have drowned and suffocated to death. I'll dissect the body. Hang medical examiner saw this and was about to put on his equipment to perform the autopsy. The cause of death of the deceased could not be discerned with the naked eye. The existence of a medical examiner was to let the dead speak. Some corpses seemed to have drowned to death, but the real cause of death was not what it appeared to be. At this time, it was necessary for a medical examiner to perform an autopsy and find the cause of death from the organs of the corpse. Therefore, an autopsy was needed. Finding the cause of death of the deceased was only to find the murderer faster. There's no need to look for it. It was stabbed to death by a silver needle. Just as Hang medical examiner was about to do it, Yunjian suddenly said. After that, Yunjian did not wait for anyone to react. She walked to the corpse and pulled out a silver needle from the long hair on the scalp of the corpse. Everyone who saw this scene was shocked. Yunjian had not touched the corpse in such a secluded place. How did she find it so quickly? Even Hang medical examiner was stunned. However, just as everyone was shocked, Yunjian curled her lips. She stared at the extremely difficult to find silver needle and said something that made everyone's eyes twitch fiercely. Only a professional can use the strength of their hands to stab an extremely thin silver needle into the top of a person's head. This move is the basic course of an assassin's organization. Top reading website, M. Brother Jiajun has never studied forensic science, but he's just that amazing. This is something that outsiders can never learn. Wei Min, who had been pressed against the wall by Yun Jian and almost suffocated, could not help but praise Luo Jiajun. However, Luo Jiajun ignored Wei Min. He turned to look at Captain Zhou and said, "Captain Zhou, should we detain the suspect now?" Luo Jiajun's words made a lot of sense to everyone present. Even Hong Ling and Wei Zhe felt that Luo Jiajun's analysis at this moment was comparable to Yun Jian's. Medical examiner Hang stood aside, speechless. However, just as everyone was thinking this, Yun Jian suddenly said, "I already know who the murderer is. Captain Zhou, get ready to arrest him." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was dumbfounded. Medical examiner Hang was even more stunned. After being stunned for a moment, he looked at Yun Jian and asked with a changed expression, "What? You already know who the murderer is?" The complexity of this case is probably comparable to an S-rank mission. How long have you been on this mission? You already know who the murderer is. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2355. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. The S-level missions in the forensics world were the same as those in the assassin world. SSS level missions, S-level missions, A-level missions, B-level missions, from the big to the small, S-level missions were considered extremely difficult. As for SSS level missions, they only had a 5% success rate. Lin Zhaoyue's death was a complete mystery. The murderer must be a habitual offender who had erased all traces of the crime scene. Such a mission was considered an S-level mission, at least in the forensics world. For others, even at their fastest speed, it would take them several months to solve an S-rank mission. To be able to solve it, it would be considered impressive. But what about Yun Jian? How long had it been since she took over the mission? Did she already know who the murderer was? While everyone was still in shock, the group had already followed Yun Jian to Sister Biao's classroom. The boy who confessed to the victim was also in the victim's class. Could he really be the murderer? According to the investigation, the boy who confessed to the victim was not in the classroom on the day of her death. It was said that he had applied for leave. Captain Zhou suddenly spoke when they were about to reach Sister Biao's classroom. Yun Jian did not reply to his question. When they reached the classroom, Miss Yang, the homeroom teacher of Sister Biao's class, came out to receive them. Miss Yang was in class at the moment. When she saw Yun Jian and the rest, she hurried over to ask, "How is it? Did you find the murderer?" There were no surveillance cameras near the toilets of the Imperial Academy. This was also the reason why the murderer could not be found. Miss Yang was obviously very concerned about her classmate's death. After all, she was the homeroom teacher and had to take responsibility. It's still under investigation. Can we enter the classroom to take a look? Captain Zhou asked. Of course, please. Mr. Yang had just finished his sentence when he heard a voice. No need to enter the classroom. Yun Jian's voice suddenly rang out. What was she up to again? Hearing this, Wei Min and the rest's faces flashed with displeasure. However, just as Wei Min was thinking this, Yun Jian had already looked straight at Miss Yang in front of everyone. You were not there on the night of the incident. Yeah, last night's self-study session wasn't my class. Mr. Yang nodded. So after killing Lin Jiayue, you framed everything on the boy who confessed to Lin Jiayue half a month ago. Do you really think that no one knows what you've done, Teacher Yang? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, looked at Teacher Yang, and suddenly said. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. What are you talking about? Mr. Yang was also stunned. He looked at Yun Jian and said in a daze. You are indeed very capable. You destroyed all the evidence at the scene, but from the beginning, your expression told me everything. Yun Jian ignored Mr. Yang's rebuttal and continued speaking. Upon hearing Yun Jian's words, Teacher Yang suddenly laughed coldly. After that, Mr. Yang stopped arguing. He reached out and tore off the human skin mask on his face. Then, in front of everyone present, he said, haha. So what? That's right, I'm not that idiot Yang Jihong. That fool had already gone to hell. But even if you found out about me, what can you do? Before I retired, I was an ace assassin in the International Underground Assassin Organization. I'm already very surprised that you were able to find out that it was me who did it. But if you want to capture me with just your group of trash, then you're all delusional. What police, what medical examiner? In my hands, you're just a group of small fries. Mr. Yang suddenly changed his face and claimed to be an ace assassin in the Underground Assassin Organization. This identity scared Luo Jiejun and the others. Captain Zhou and medical examiner Hang were not in a hurry to turn back. Assassin. And he was an ace assassin in the underground. Everyone present was scared by this change and took 3 steps back. However, just as everyone's face changed and kept retreating, Yun Jian, who stood in the same place without moving, suddenly raised her eyes. That pair of deep black eyes was now stained with a trace of blood red. Then, she looked at Teacher Yang and suddenly curled her lips into a cold smile. Then, in front of everyone present, she said to Teacher Yang a sentence that shocked everyone present. Ace assassin in the underground. Which organization are you from? How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Do you know, when I was in the assassin and secret agent world, you didn't even know what I was. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2356. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Once Yun Jian said that, everyone's eyes widened in shock as they bulged out of their sockets. What did she say? When she was in the world of assassins and secret agents? To be able to say something like that, it meant that Yun Jian was an assassin and secret agent. She had also been in the world of assassins and secret agents. Then her true identity was, little brat, are you even 18 years old? You want to compare who has been in the world of assassins and secret agents for longer. I've been in the world of assassins for 30 years. In terms of experience and ability, I'm definitely not weaker than you. Teacher Yang heard Yun Jian's words and refuted Yun Jian loudly before anyone could react. His words were equally arrogant, but there was a confidence in his words that no outsider could imitate. In Teacher Yang's opinion, Yun Jian was at most an 18-year-old girl. In his words, she hadn't even grown her hair yet she dared to say something like, when I was in the world of assassins and secret agents, you didn't even know what you were. Wei Lin, don't be stubborn. This matter is no longer something we can interfere with. Come back quickly. Let's leave this matter to the police. Luo Jiejun saw Yun Jian standing in front of Teacher Yang and was afraid that Teacher Yang would hurt Yun Jian. He quickly spoke up and tried to call Yunjian back. Yes. Come back quickly. You're a genius in the world of forensic medicine. You've already completed your mission the moment you found the murderer. I've already contacted the Piluo City Armed Police Force. I believe that the armed police force will be here soon to assist us in apprehending the murderer. You don't have to interfere with the rest of the matter. Captain Zhou and Luo Jiejun used the same tone to speak to Yunjian. In fact, Yunjian's words about being a secret agent and a member of the assassin world were just a bluff from Captain Zhou and Luo Jiejun's point of view. Yunjian purposely lied to Teacher Yang. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, Yunjian still dared to speak to Teacher Yang in such a tone. If Yunjian didn't retreat in the next second, she would definitely lose her life here. Teacher Yang suddenly chuckled. That slut Lin Jiaoyue refused to be my woman and even scolded me for being the scum of society. She said that I would go to hell sooner or later. TSK, look for yourselves, that's what happened to her. But you little brat actually dare to use such a tone to talk to me. Do you want to end up like that bitch Lin Jiaoyue? Teacher Yang spoke in a slow and leisurely tone, giving off a sense of leisure and laziness. At this point, Teacher Yang cast a sidelong glance at Yunjian and continued speaking in front of everyone. TSK. Seeing how pretty you are, I really can't bear to kill you, but... Teacher Yang. When he said this, he suddenly paused. His black eyes were originally staring at the ground. In the next second, he didn't continue speaking. After pausing, Teacher Yang suddenly raised his eyes that had been staring at the ground. At that moment, he was already charging towards Yunjian like a bolt of lightning. Immediately after making his move, Teacher Yang bent his hand into a very standard eagle's claw and extended it towards Yunjian's neck. At the same time, a sinister voice suddenly sounded, "But you can still go to hell." Teacher Yang's sudden attack made everyone present unable to react in time. When Luo Jiejun and the others saw this, their eyes fiercely froze and even their breathing stopped at the same time. It's over. It's too late. Yunjian is finished. That kind of fast killer move. If one hadn't been in the assassin world for more than 10 years, they wouldn't have been able to withstand it. However, just when everyone thought that Yunjian was finished, they saw that when Teacher Yang made his move, not only did Yunjian's face not have the slightest bit of panic, but there was also an incomparably cold smile. In the next second, everyone suddenly saw a scene that caused their pupils to shrink and their mouths to open wide in shock. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2357. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Teacher Yang bent his hands into the shape of an eagle's claw, reaching towards Yunjian's neck with lightning speed. He planned to grab Yunjian's neck and kill Yunjian in one move. The speed of his attack, the way he attacked, it was so fast that no one could react in time. His speed, if he wasn't a trained ace assassin, he definitely wouldn't have the ability to do this. An ace assassin from an underground assassin organization. That was a terrifying existence. To the police, an ace assassin who had undergone strict training, who had been through life and death situations, and who had grown up in a survival of the fittest environment, was simply a nightmare. But even so, a powerful ace assassin from an underground assassin organization would still be caught by the police. But at least for now, Captain Zhou and the few ordinary policemen he brought from the police station, plus Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe, and the other students, as well as Hang Medical Examiner, there was no way they could compete with Teacher Yang. Not to mention saving Yunjian from the murderous Teacher Yang, who belonged to a group of terrifying assassins from an assassin organization. No. Wei Lin. Dodge! Luo Jiejun's face suddenly changed. He was so scared that his face suddenly turned pale, even his teeth started to tremble. Luo Jiejun was so scared that his face suddenly turned pale, his teeth trembling, because he was afraid that Yun Jian would be killed by Teacher Yang. During this period, Luo Jiejun had been paying more and more attention to Yun Jian. At this moment, Yun Jian was like a cloud of fog to Luo Jiejun. The secrets she carried were like a bottomless pit that attracted Luo Jiejun's attention. If Yun Jian died, then all of this would be gone. So Luo Jiejun couldn't bear it, and almost at the same time, he shouted out these words in a hoarse voice. If it was said that Wei Min had never seen Luo Jiejun's various actions before. But at this moment, when Wei Min saw that Luo Jiejun was about to be killed by Teacher Yang because of Yun Jian, she screamed on the spot. Wei Min's face hardened again, her nails digging into her flesh. Die! Die! Ha ha ha! Go to hell like Lin Jiayue, that untouchable bitch! Ha ha ha! However, the crowd only saw that Teacher Yang had already arrived in front of Yun Jian. At that moment, Teacher Yang's hand had already curled into an eagle's claw and was about to grab Yun Jian's neck and deliver a fatal blow. No! Luo Jiejun, Captain Zhou, Hang Medical Examiner, and a few other people who cared about Yun Jian all let out a fatal cry. Just as the crowd screamed and closed their eyes in despair, waiting to see Yun Jian's neck snapped with a crack after Miss Yang grabbed her and killed her on the spot, Yun Jian's face suddenly turned pale. All the others saw was a flicker in Yun Jian's eyes. The next moment, just as Teacher Yang's hand was about to reach Yun Jian leaned to the side and dodged Teacher Yang's attack. Then, in a flash, she appeared behind Teacher Yang. Even Teacher Yang did not have time to react at this speed. Everyone was shocked, but Yun Jian hooked Teacher Yang with her leg and tripped him. The moment Teacher Yang was tripped and fell to the ground, the two butterfly knives in her hands flew out. The saber flashed in an instant and slashed through the meridians of Mr. Yang's wrists and ankles at the speed of lightning. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. The blood drew a curve in the air and sank into the dust on the ground. This speed was so fast that Teacher Yang did not even have time to react. It was so fast that everyone present widened their eyes. Ah! Teacher Yang's scream suddenly rang out. In the next second, Yun Jian stepped on Mr. Yang from the back and sneered at him in front of everyone. Mr. Yang, you're the one who's being bullied. I already said that when I was in the assassin and secret agent world, you didn't even know what you were. Crippling your limbs. In the past, you were barely considered something, but now you're a complete piece of trash. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2358. Page 1/1. Yun Jian's action of using the butterfly knife to cut Teacher Yang's limbs was completely different from ordinary people cutting their wrists and ankles. These 4 slashes were fast, accurate, and ruthless. It looked like a random cut, no different from a cut on the skin. However, everyone in the circle of assassins and secret agents knew that this was definitely a move that the assassin organization would pass on to the assassin secret agent when the assassin secret agent was trained to the peak state. If this move wasn't executed properly, it could even lead to one's death. In order to execute this move, one must be familiar with the use of the butterfly knife, coupled with nimble movements, and a series of continuous movements. More importantly, Yun Jian's seemingly random 4 slashes were actually aimed at the vital points. 4 slashes, just 4 slashes. These 4 slashes had actually severed the meridians of Teacher Yang's left and right hands. In other words, Teacher Yang would never be able to lift his hands, or walk with his feet. His hands and feet were completely and utterly crippled. The screaming Teacher Yang was now paralyzed on the ground. He looked at Yun Jian in horror, his face no longer having the arrogance he had when he was shouting at Yun Jian. That move just now. That move was indeed a killer move from an assassin organization. Moreover, it was one of the most difficult killer moves to learn among the killer moves. As far as I know, there are no more than 10 people in this world who know how to use the same move as you did just now. Who are you? Mr. Yang, who was paralyzed on the floor, did not even care about the pain of his limbs being crippled. His eyes rolled up and his eyes were wide as he stared at Yun Jian, like he was trying to find an answer from her face. You can take him away now. You can interrogate him however you want. Also, for this mission, please erase the record of my assistance. Thank you. Yun Jian didn't say anything else. She inserted the 2 butterfly knives into her thighs, then turned and left after speaking to Captain Zhou. If your assistance is reported, it will be recorded as a great merit. Are you sure you want to erase the record of your assistance and even the main person who succeeded in this mission? Captain Zhou couldn't help but ask when he saw Yun Jian turn and leave. Erase it. Unexpectedly, Yun Jian didn't even stop. She left these 2 simple words and left. For a forensic doctor, fame was more important than anything else. Successfully solving a case wasn't just a monetary reward for a forensic doctor, it was also a rise in fame. Only with a rise in fame would you be able to get more cases in the future, and more people would hire you to solve cases. When Hang's medical examiner heard Yun Jian's reply, he was stunned. He finally understood. Why was Yun Jian, a person who was invited as a special guest by the top international medical institution, not at all famous internationally? That was because she had solved the case and didn't care to leave her name. This result stunned Hang's medical examiner. It also made Luo Jiajun and the others gulp hard. If an ordinary person had Yun Jian's ability to solve a case, they would have bragged to the heavens. But what about Yun Jian? She actually asked to erase her record and didn't ask for credit. Luo Jiajun looked at Yun Jian's departing footsteps and pondered. She was really getting more and more charming. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2359. A few days later, after Captain Zhou arrested Teacher Yang, the results of the case were out. That day, Yun Jian had just arrived at the classroom when her deskmate, Luo Jichen, rushed into the classroom and told Yun Jian about the gossip he had heard over the past few days. Wei Lin, did you know? The results of the case that was solved 2 days ago are out. I didn't expect the police to be so powerful. They solved the case in just 2 days. Take a guess. Lin Zhaoyue's death, who did it? Luo Jichen didn't know what happened that day. He thought that Yun Jian didn't know anything, so he asked Yun Jian in a suspenseful tone. Who? Yun Jian knew it was intentional. At that, Luo Jichen looked at Yun Jian with a grin that said, "You don't know about this, do you?" and spoke. "I knew you wouldn't be able to guess. Hee. The truth is out. It was Lin Zhaoyue's homeroom teacher who did it." Lin Zhaoyue's real homeroom teacher, Yang Jihong, was already dead. The person who pretended to be Lin Zhaoyue's homeroom teacher was an ace killer. He was amazing. But he was still caught by the police. As expected of our Z country's armed police force. They're amazing. The real reason why Teacher Yang killed Lin Zhaoyue was because Lin Zhaoyue was bold and unrestrained, but she fell in love with Yang Jihong, who was already married at that time. He was Lin Zhaoyue's real homeroom teacher. Teacher Yang originally lived as an ordinary person. He once met Lin Zhaoyue by chance and confessed to her that he wanted her to be his mistress. Lin Zhaoyue refused, so Teacher Yang killed Yang Jihong in revenge and pretended to be Yang Jihong to trick Lin Zhaoyue into going to the toilet. But who knew that Lin Jiayue found out that Yang Jihong was disguised by Teacher Yang, so she wanted to run away. In the end, she was dragged to the toilet by Teacher Yang. After a round of violence, Teacher Yang killed Lin Jiayue with a silver needle with a perverted mind of revenge. He then pretended that Lin Jiayue had committed suicide by soaking her head in the toilet. Everything was settled. It could only be said that Lin Jiayue was very unlucky to have met Teacher Yang, an ace assassin from an assassin organization. Sometimes, when a person's luck starts to deteriorate, you can't stop it. You can even choke to death while drinking water. That's how it works. On this day, Yun Jian went to the school cafeteria for breakfast. She really wanted to eat sauerkraut today, so she brought some sauerkraut and gave it to the cafeteria auntie to add into the stir-fried noodles. After that, he placed the fried noodles in front of a table and sat down to eat. It was really strange. These days, her appetite was getting bigger and bigger. In the past, Yun Jian's appetite was not small, but now, her appetite was 3 times as much as before. Therefore, Yun Jian's bowl of fried noodles was equivalent to 3 bowls of ordinary fried noodles. It was Yun Jian who deliberately asked the cafeteria auntie to prepare 3 servings. Damn, Wei Lin, you're eating so much again. Luo Jichen stepped on the stool and jumped onto it. He sat on the stool, holding a lunchbox that was 1/3 the size of Yun Jian's stir-fried noodles. He stared at her in a daze. Yun Jian responded softly and continued to eat her noodles. At this moment, Luo Jiejun, Wei Zhe, Wei Min, and Hong Ling just happened to walk past the table where Yun Jian and Luo Jichen were sitting. At this moment, Luo Jichen was looking at Yun Jian with great interest. When Luo Jiejun and the others walked past Yun Jian, Luo Jichen suddenly said to Yun Jian, "Hee. Wei Lin, don't tell me you're pregnant. I heard that women eat a lot when they're pregnant. And to be able to eat 3 times more than ordinary people, this means that there are 2 in your stomach. Don't tell me you're pregnant with twins. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website." Chapter 2360. Luo Jichen was grinning as he said this, his face full of ridicule. As he spoke, his deep black eyes seemed to stare at Yun Jian's stomach that wasn't bulging, and he was all smiles. Suddenly hearing Luo Jichen's words, Yun Jian's hand that was holding the stir-fried noodles suddenly paused. "Jichen. What nonsense are you talking about? You're usually ignorant and incompetent in the academy, hanging out with your hooligan friends every day. I don't care about you anymore. But what kind of nonsense are you spewing out of your mouth? Wei Lin is still a pure and innocent girl, she hasn't even had a boyfriend, how could she be pregnant?" Luo Jiejun had just walked past Yun Jian and Luo Jichen when he suddenly heard Luo Jichen's words. Luo Jiejun stopped almost at the same time, turned around and scolded Luo Jichen. Luo Jiejun suddenly stopped and said such words to his younger brother Luo Jichen. This action shocked everyone present. Needless to say, Luo Jiejun was paying more and more attention to Yun Jian now. He was just passing by, but when he heard Luo Jichen's words, Luo Jiejun immediately stopped and scolded his own younger brother in such a tone. And it was because of a girl. This was something that had never happened before. "No, brother, can't you tell? I'm just joking with Wei Lin. We usually joke around too. If you don't believe me, you can ask Wei Lin." Luo Jichen was so scared that his face trembled, and he quickly waved his hand and pointed at Yun Jian. "Wei Lin, don't you think so?" Luo Jichen looked at Yun Jian with an expression that begged her for help, and his hands were begging for help. He didn't want his big brother to complain to his dad. Yun Jian responded softly, then she picked up the pickled cabbage stirred in the stir-fried noodles, chewed it, and continued to eat. Yun Jian didn't think that she was pregnant. She used to eat a lot, and recently, she didn't feel like vomiting anymore, so it obviously wasn't a sign of pregnancy. Moreover, even if she was really pregnant, she definitely wouldn't let Luo Jiejun and the others know. Luo Jiejun, Wei Min, and the others had their own thoughts when they saw that Yun Jian was too lazy to say anything else after replying. Not long after, Yun Jian finished her meal and left. From the beginning to the end, she did not pay any attention to Luo Jiejun, Wei Min, and the others. Captain Zhou came to see Yun Jian for the last time. He brought Yun Jian the last news about Sister Biao, who was also Lin Jiaoyue. Lin Jiaoyue's family was very wealthy. Her family's cash flow was enough to buy 10 of the largest and most expensive private helicopters in one go. Men tend to be fickle when they have money. Lin Jiaoyue has a father who has multiple wives. Modern society didn't allow polygamy. Lin Jiaoyue's biological mother died early, and her stepmother married her father. Lin Jiaoyue's father also kept as many as 10 female students or mistresses in their 20s. Later, Lin Jiaoyue's father simply brought his mistress and the children they had outside home to live together. Only one wife could register a marriage certificate. However, the country didn't stipulate that one couldn't keep mistresses, nor did it stipulate that everyone couldn't live together. Lin Jiaoyue's father had many sons and daughters, so it didn't make much of a difference. Moreover, Lin Jiaoyue's father favored boys over girls. Because Lin Jiaoyue was a girl, he had always disliked her. Lin Jiaoyue grew up in such a family. She was bullied by her half-siblings and her father's mistresses since she was young. She grew up without any sense of existence, so she yearned to become stronger. It was also because of this that she began to madly learn taekwondo, judo, and so on just to become stronger. She wanted to be like a well-liked boy, and she wanted her only biological father to pay attention to her. In school, she bullied others because she wanted people to pay attention to her. All of this was recorded in Lin Jiaoyue's codebook. Captain Zhou handed the last page to Yun Jian and said, "This codebook should be the deceased's diary when she was alive. You're mentioned in it." Yun Jian took it and flattened the pages of the codebook. She saw that the last page of Lin Jiaoyue's diary was written on it. "Not long ago, I saw Ling Qianqian despising her father in the market again. Her father was poor and sold vegetables in the market, but her father was really good to her, so good that it made me envious. When can my father be like her father and care about me a little more? Even if it's just a little more, even if our family is as poor as her family, or even poorer, it doesn't matter. I have hands and feet, I can support my father and myself. I don't care about money. I just want to live with my parents." So when I saw Ling Qianqian, I couldn't help but want to bully her. I want her to understand that she should treat her father better, even if her father is just a farmer who sells vegetables. Oh, by the way, I met a very beautiful girl today. She has a strong aura and is very domineering. She's my type. She saved Ling Qianqian from my hands. I heard that her name is Wei Lin, the youngest daughter of the Wei family who just returned to the Wei family. She was also bullied by her sister, Wei Min, but she's so powerful. I heard that she dared to directly fight back against her so-called sister. If I can be as powerful as her one day, then I won't be bullied by them. I really want to be friends with her. I don't know if I'll have the chance in the future, hee. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2361. Seeing the last sentence, Yun Jian's red arc slightly closed, and her long eyelashes fluttered up and down. Captain Zhou didn't notice these subtle expressions at all. At that time, Captain Zhou couldn't find any change in Yun Jian's expression when she saw the last page of Lin Jiaoyue's diary. "Can you give me this codebook?" Yun Jian didn't raise her head to look at Captain Zhou and asked bluntly. Originally, the deceased's belongings should be handed over to the deceased's relatives, but I think the deceased's relatives don't care. Even the body of the deceased was claimed by the deceased's nanny. Take this codebook if you want it, Captain Zhou said to Yun Jian after hearing Yun Jian's words. Thank you, Yun Jian said softly, then turned and left. 5 days later. It was a sunny day, but the temperature difference between day and night was huge. In the winter night, the cold wind was bone-chilling. It could make people shiver all over and their legs tremble. It was daytime when the sun was high up in the sky. If people walked to a dark place, they would also shiver from the cold. However, if they stood under the sun, they could feel the warmth of the sun. It wasn't hot at all. Lin family. After Lin Jiaoyue's death, her body was taken home by Lin Jiaoyue's nanny. She was cremated at the crematorium and brought back an urn. There was no intention of holding a funeral inside or outside the Lin family. At this moment, Lin Jiaoyue's father, Lin Xingyuan, was holding a banquet to entertain his business friends. Lin Xingyuan didn't intend to hold a funeral at all. He just wanted to use the funeral of one of his daughters to hold a big banquet, make friends in the business world, and try to expand his company. Lin Xingyuan wasn't good-looking. His skin was so rough that it was difficult to look at it directly. He had big ears, a big mouth, and a big nose. His face was flat and rectangular, and he was only 161 centimeters tall. At this time, Lin Xingyuan was holding his mistress, Zhang Xiaomei. Zhang Xiaomei was 168 centimeters tall. When she stood next to Lin Xingyuan, there was a stark difference in height. Dear say, Lin Jiaoyue has already passed away, and this urn is placed at the entrance of our living room. How ominous is that? If you ask me, let's throw that thing out the door. My dear, I say this for the good of our family. How ominous would it be if so many big bosses came up tonight and saw that urn? What a disappointment. Right? At this moment, Zhang Xiaomei was about to stick her full breasts to Lin Xingyuan. She used all her strength to blow air into Lin Xingyuan's ear. Good, good, good. I'll do as you say. Lin Xingyuan patted Zhang Xiaomei's butt and nodded. Zhang Xiaomei was only 20 years old. She was young enough to be his new mistress. She was pretty, and most importantly, she was good in bed. After Lin Xingyuan agreed with Zhang Xiaomei, he hurriedly called the Lin family's only nanny over. Lin Jiaoyue's mother passed away early, so Lin Jiaoyue was raised by her nanny. Lin Jiaoyue's death caused the nanny to be in pain and worry for the past few days. When she heard that Lin Xingyuan was going to move Lin Jiaoyue's urn from the Lin family's living room to the door, the nanny's tears instantly fell. She stood up and resisted Lin Xingyuan for the first time. Master, Yu is also your daughter. She hasn't been buried yet, so let her stay at home for a while. It's cold outside, I'm afraid of her. I'm afraid of her catching a cold. As the nanny spoke, her tears couldn't stop falling. Her good daughter, wow. She was only in her teens, and at such a young age, she had already entered heaven. Moreover, was there no room for her ashes in the house? Is this family yours or mine? You don't want to let it go. Good. Someone, move the urn and all the reeds, these ominous things out. Lin Xingyuan was so angry that a lump of air came out of his nose and he roared. Someone immediately walked over to throw the urn and reeds, which symbolized Lin Jiaoyue's farewell, out of the Lin family's door. The nanny cried as she rushed over to stop them, but she was pushed to the ground. Just as the mistress Zhang Xiaomei smirked and her plan succeeded, the door was suddenly kicked open. The solid door was uprooted and kicked over 10 meters away, almost crushing one of the guests. At that moment, a beautiful girl who had stopped outside the door and entered, immediately appeared in front of everyone's frightened eyes. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2362. When Yun Jian appeared in front of everyone present was so shocked that they trembled violently. Who was this young girl who suddenly appeared in front of everyone? Looking at her age, she shouldn't be more than 18. An 18-year-old girl had actually kicked away a huge door with a single kick. What kind of leg strength did she have to be able to do that? Everyone present was shocked by Yun Jian's kick. Lin Xingyuan and Zhang Xiaomei were no exception. But after regaining his senses, Lin Xingyuan stared at Yun Jian with vigilance and asked, "Who are you? Do you know where this is? How dare you trespass on private property?" However, Yun Jian only raised her head slightly and glanced at Lin Xingyuan from the corner of her eyes. Then, she walked to the side of the Lin family's hall and walked to an inconspicuous corner. That was where Lin Jiayue's urn was originally placed. Security! Security! Get him out of here! Seeing Yun Jian walk to the place where Lin Jiayue's urn was placed, Lin Xingyuan shouted loudly in an exaggerated tone. What Lin Xingyuan was afraid of was, of course, not that Yun Jian would destroy Lin Jiayue's urn, but that he was frightened by Yun Jian's kick just now. He was afraid that Yun Jian would turn around and deal with him. Just as Lin Xingyuan was shouting in a frightened voice, the nanny suddenly gritted her teeth and rushed 2 steps in front of Lin Xingyuan. Then, in front of all the guests, she knelt down in front of Lin Xingyuan. "Master! I beg you. Today is Yu Yu's last day in the Lin family. Don't let her leave sadly. That little girl should be Yu Yu's friend. Let her send Yu Yu off. I beg you. I beg you, master." The nanny couldn't stop crying. She kowtowed to Lin Xingyuan while pleading loudly. After all, the nanny had worked in the Lin family for decades. Moreover, she was his own flesh and blood, so Lin Xingyuan nodded and agreed after hearing this. However, just as Lin Xingyuan was about to nod and agree, "Dear, I've seen Yeye's friend before. That woman just kicked our door in front of Yeye's morning hall. She's definitely not Yeye's friend. Also, putting the urn in the main hall is really inauspicious. My dear, don't you love me anymore?" Annoying, annoying. Zhang Xiaomei grabbed Lin Xingyuan's hand and used her chest to touch Lin Xingyuan's head while acting coquettishly. "My dear, you're right. Go and get the urn and all that stuff out. Put it at the back door." Hearing Zhang Xiaomei's coquettish voice, Lin Xingyuan's lower body tightened. He quickly listened to Zhang Xiaomei's words and asked someone to move Lin Jiayue's urn to the back door. She didn't even allow Lin Jiayue to leave the Lin family's main gate. However, as soon as Lin Xingyuan finished speaking, a ping-pang sound was suddenly heard. Hearing this voice, everyone looked in the same direction. Not far from where the sound came from, Yun Jian was already standing in front of Lin Jiayue's urn. They saw a clean butterfly knife thrown directly on the table by Yun Jian. After making a loud noise in this quiet place, it appeared in front of everyone. Suddenly seeing this clean butterfly knife, everyone's face suddenly froze. At that time, Yun Jian was looking at the black and white photo of Lin Jiayue's smiling face above Lin Jiayue's urn. She was expressionless in front of everyone present. When everyone's faces changed dramatically in horror, she said, "You and I are the same. We both live in a world where we can't help ourselves. You said that you want to be as powerful as me, and I also want to be as ordinary as you. This butterfly knife has been with me for more than 10 years. The number of souls that died under my butterfly knife is exactly 5,000, no more, no less. Now, I'm giving it to you. I'll accept your wish for you. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2363. Yun Jian's words instantly stirred up the shock and fear of all the guests present. Even some people's faces gradually turned as white as a sheet of paper at a speed that outsiders could clearly see. Shock. Fear. Horror. There was not a single person in the crowd who was not affected by these three words. For a moment, the scene was so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard clearly. Everyone maintained a stunned expression, and no one dared to take the lead and make a sound. Among them, Lin Xingyuan and Zhang Xiaomei's expressions were the most exaggerated. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Lin Xingyuan and Zhang Xiaomei's faces completely froze. The two of them were so frightened that their faces changed drastically, and even their bodies started to tremble violently. What did she just say? She said that the souls of the deceased under the butterfly knife were exactly 5,000 people, no more, no less. 5,000 people. Could it be that the souls of the deceased under the knife, a total of 5,000 people, were all killed by this girl standing in front of Lin Jiaoyue's urn and portrait? Who was she? How could she kill so many people? Lin Xingyuan never imagined that Yun Jian was such a terrifying existence. He was so frightened that he almost suffocated. What do you want? Recalling the scene when Yun Jian kicked over the door when she appeared, Lin Xingyuan was so frightened that his whole body trembled. Then, he stared at Yun Jian and asked in a trembling voice. Zhang Xiaomei, who was standing beside Lin Xingyuan, rolled her eyes and suddenly glared fiercely at Yun Jian. Then, she leaned over to Lin Xingyuan's ear and whispered a few words. This little friend, thank you so much for coming here to see you for the last time. As her father, I really welcome you. I wonder if you have any requests, you can ask me. Lin Xingyuan looked at Yun Jian with his ugly and fat face and spoke with a fawning expression. Come here, Yun Jian said expressionlessly as she glanced at Lin Xingyuan from the corner of her eyes. After saying that, Lin Xingyuan obediently ran over. While running over, Lin Xingyuan also carefully looked at Yun Jian. This little girl is so pretty. If he could be like Zhang Xiaomei, that little slut, and take this little girl into his harem. Lin Xingyuan had an evil thought in his heart. This little girl was only 2 years younger than Zhang Xiaomei. Although he was 1 or 2 years older than them, he was rich. Moreover, an older man would dote on her. Lin Xingyuan muttered in his heart, could it be that this little girl had taken a fancy to him? After all, there weren't many men who were as rich and doted on women as he was. While thinking, Lin Xingyuan arrived in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian had already noticed that Zhang Xiaomei had sneaked out the door, but she was too lazy to pay attention to her. Instead, she stood in front of Lin Xingyuan and threw a white piece of paper in front of him. Pick it up and read it. Lin Xingyuan was afraid that Yun Jian would make a move on him. He quickly picked up the white note on the ground and read it. Daddy loves you. What the hell was this? Lin Xingyuan was just thinking about it when he saw Yun Jian take out a codebook that wasn't too thick, but it wasn't too thin either. She asked him to get someone to bring a basin of fire. Yun Jian burned the codebook in front of everyone. Other than Yun Jian, no one else knew or saw that there was a small piece of paper on the last page of the codebook. That small piece of paper, along with the codebook, was completely buried in the basin of fire. A second before it was destroyed, Lin Jiaoyue's fresh and delicate words were still flickering in the light of the fire. My wish, I really want to hear Daddy say it again. Daddy loves you. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2364. No one knew what Yunjian was doing just now. They all thought that Yunjian was crazy. But at this moment, as the master of the Lin family, Lin Xingyuan, didn't say anything. Naturally, the VIPs and guests who were invited to the Lin family were even more unwilling to appear. When the small note and codebook in front of everyone's eyes completely disappeared along with the fire in the basin, Yunjian turned and walked towards the door when the fire in the basin started to fade. Behind Yunjian was the flickering fire, and Yunjian walked towards the Lin family's door under everyone's eyes. She accepted her wish on her behalf. She didn't have the right to care about other things. Everyone had their own fate. Yunjian wasn't someone who meddled in other people's business. Just as Yunjian walked out of the Lin family's door, Zhang Xiaomei, who had snuck out just now, suddenly brought a group of bodyguards and blocked Yunjian at the Lin family's door. That's her. She was so cocky just now. She even threw a knife in front of Lin Jiaoyue and said something like, "The number of souls that died under my butterfly knife is exactly 5,000 people." So cocky, so cocky. Zhang Xiaomei brought a group of bodyguards and blocked Yunjian's way. "Little girl, you're so young, but you know how to brag. You even said that you killed 5,000 people? So cocky. Then little girl, may I ask when you started killing people? 8 years old? Or 9? Ha 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 ha, you don't even have a draft when you're lying. You kill people every day. It's extremely difficult for you to kill 5,000 people. Even professional killers aren't as cocky as you. I'm impressed by your bragging. I can't help but be impressed." Ha! When one of the bodyguards heard Zhang Xiaomei's words, he chuckled and said coldly. At this moment, Lin Xingyuan and the guests in the room were all gathered at the door. Zhang Xiaomei actually went to call the bodyguards to save the situation. This group of bodyguards has been through life and death situations. I heard that they once rescued their employer from the hands of an international top-secret agent. That's why Big Boss Lin hired them. No matter how good this little girl is, she can't go against the heavens. I reckon that not long after this little girl's bragging will explode. Someone said excitedly. There's going to be a good show. This little girl is really brave, but it's useless no matter how brave she is. The surrounding people started to discuss again. When Lin Xingyuan heard what the people around him said, he lifted his head smugly, no longer looking fearful of Yunjian like he did just now. At the same time, Yunjian, who stood in front of the bodyguards, suddenly took out a transparent glove from her pocket and put it on slowly in front of everyone as she spoke. "I'm not sure if I'll be able to do anything." A bodyguard from the International Olin Group Bodyguard Company. Hearing this, the group of bodyguards standing in front of Yunjian, who were excitedly watching Yunjian put on the glove, were stunned. One of the bodyguards stood in front of Yunjian and said, "How did you know?" Hearing this, the guests, Lin Xingyuan, Zhang Xiaomei, and the others were all stunned. However, before the crowd could react, Yunjian spoke again. Her voice was mixed with a hint of arrogance. The next moment, the words that came out of her mouth made everyone present feel a wave of fear. "Coincidentally, I have a grudge against the International Olin Group bodyguards. Since you've delivered yourself to my doorstep, I'll send you on your way. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website, .com. Chapter 2365. As soon as Yunjian finished speaking, the surrounding people didn't even know when Yunjian held the 2 shiny butterfly knives in her beautiful hands that had just put on transparent gloves. When everyone present reacted to Yunjian's words, their hearts suddenly trembled and their faces suddenly changed. Lin Xingyuan, who was standing not far away, suddenly stared at Yunjian and said loudly, "Your weapon." Isn't your weapon already on the table in front of the morning hall? Why do you still have a knife on you? Just now, Yun Jian placed her only weapon in front of Lin Jiaoyue's urn and portrait. The clothes she was wearing weren't thick. Just from the appearance, it seemed that she had already handed over all her weapons. That was why Lin Xingyuan dared to stand in front of all the guests and take the lead to look directly at Yun Jian. Hearing this, Yun Jian didn't reply to Lin Xingyuan's words. She just held her two butterfly knives and rubbed the blades of the two butterfly knives against each other. Then, her eyes slightly raised. What did you say? The previous chairman and president of our Olin Group bodyguard company were killed by you. Then you are. The bodyguard who represented the bodyguards to speak to Yun Jian heard Yun Jian's words and spoke again in a frightened tone. The sudden change in the bodyguard's expression made everyone present dumbfounded. What's going on? The previous chairman and president of our Olin Group bodyguard company suddenly died. I heard that it was done by a woman who was 165 meters tall, had a slender figure, and wore a ghost mask on her face. That woman carried a Gatling gun in front of all the company's executives and directly killed the previous chairman and president in the company's board of directors meeting. In the future, the company's executives directly issued an order that if we meet that woman and the ghost mask in the future, we must back down. Another bodyguard trembled as he recounted what had happened that year in front of everyone present. The meaning of these words was that the bodyguards of the International Olin Group bodyguard company must never provoke the other party. Even if they didn't listen to their employer's orders, they were not allowed to provoke that terrifying woman. Oh. I thought that those guys would secretly send people to hunt me down. I didn't expect that they would forget about the past and even order their subordinates not to attack me. When Yun Jian heard the bodyguard's words, her deep eyes narrowed slightly and her beautiful red arc calmed down. Could it be that this girl was someone that even the International Olin bodyguard company didn't dare to provoke? After hearing the bodyguard's words, Lin Xingyuan's heart suddenly trembled, but he suddenly let out a big sigh of relief. Since she knew that her former enemy didn't care about the past and decided to make a move on her, then this young lady probably wouldn't make a move on this group of bodyguards, right? At this moment, Lin Xingyuan was afraid that he would be implicated, so he was so scared that his expression changed. He forced a harmless smile on his face. Just as Lin Xingyuan was thinking this, Yun Jian's crisp voice sounded as expected, "Then I won't kill you." After these words were spoken, for some reason, under Yun Jian's oppressive aura, everyone heaved a huge sigh of relief. Lin Xingyuan also heaved a huge sigh of relief. However, just when Lin Xingyuan and everyone present thought that Yun Jian would stop, a scene that made everyone forget to breathe suddenly occurred in the next second. Just as Yun Jian was about to hide the butterfly knife at the tight part of her thigh, she fiercely swung the butterfly knife in one hand. In front of everyone present, she controlled the timing and strength of the butterfly knife's blade and threw it more than 10 meters away, directly stabbing one of the bodyguards in between the eyebrows. This bodyguard was the one who said that Yun Jian was really good at bragging. The knife pierced 3 inches into the wood between the eyebrows. This bodyguard was already dead before he even realized the danger. He directly fell to the ground, dead. When everyone saw this, they were so frightened that their faces suddenly changed. In the next second, Yun Jian's red arc curved. She pursed her lips again in front of everyone present, and then her cold words made everyone present tremble in fear. "This is a meeting gift for you. Let me tell you, the new chairman of the Olin Bodyguard Company, don't think that I don't know what he's doing behind my back. Otherwise, I'll go over and take his dog life at any time." Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2366. Yun Jian's words rang clearly in everyone's ears, triggering their fear and dread to the point that their faces paled. Lin Xingyuan was so scared that his face was trembling, His lips and teeth were trembling, and his originally sharp eyes became lifeless in an instant. Kill him, he. Lin Xingyuan was so scared that he wanted to hide behind the guests. Dear, I'm scared. At this moment, Zhang Xiaomei, who thought she was very smart and had even taken the initiative to call for the bodyguards, grabbed Lin Xingyuan with a face full of shock and fear. She hid behind Lin Xingyuan. Dear, save me. I'm scared. That woman is too scary. She will kill. Zhang Xiaomei said as she grabbed Lin Xingyuan's hand and pushed him in front of Yunjian. Lin Xingyuan saw that timid and scared look, and his face suddenly changed. Lin Xingyuan's body that was pushed by Zhang Xiaomei to Yunjian because of fear was also supported by Lin Xingyuan himself, and only then did he stabilize himself. At first, he wanted Zhang Xiaomei to be his mistress because not only was she young, but she also said that she loved him. She said that she would give up everything for him, even her life. If a bad person appeared one day, she would be the first to stand in front of him and protect him. When Lin Xingyuan heard this and saw Zhang Xiaomei's face full of vows, he really believed her. He thought that she was an innocent and pure girl who really loved him and was willing to die for him. But if Yunjian really wanted to kill them, Zhang Xiaomei would run over and hide behind him, and she would push him towards Yunjian. If Lin Xingyuan didn't stand firm, he would have already thrown himself towards Yunjian. It was conceivable that after Yunjian killed one of the bodyguards, he would fall and hit the muzzle of the gun, and what would happen to him? It was also at that moment that Lin Xingyuan's mind suddenly jolted. His face trembled as he suddenly recalled that a few decades ago, there was once a daughter that he loved to the bone who grabbed his hand and calmly said to him, "Don't worry. Daddy. Yaya loves you." It was the kind of love a daughter had for her father. In the future, if Daddy is in danger, you will be the first to rush in front of Daddy. No matter how many demons there are, you will defeat them all. The scene changed. He and his daughter were blocked by a large wolfhound. His little daughter stood in front of the wolfhound and stopped it. She said to her father, who was standing behind her, "Don't be afraid, Yu is here. Yu will always protect you." However, the daughter who had once stood in front of him and declared that she would protect him forever would no longer have the chance to stand in front of him and say those tender but touching words. Never again, there was no chance, since when did his precious daughter become one of his many children, an existence that he could do without? That fearless child who stood in front of him the moment he was in danger, reaching out with his short little hands, now, they had become ashes that could be held in a small hand in front of the morning hall. Perhaps when the wind blew, that small handful of ashes would disappear into every corner of this world, never to be found again. Lin Xingyuan, who suddenly thought of this, had tears in his eyes. He suddenly shouted, "Yu." He turned around and pushed Zhang Xiaomei away and rushed to the morning hall of the Lin family's villa. Almost at the same time, Lin Xingyuan ran and knelt in front of Lin Zhaoyue's morning hole. His brows were wrinkled into waves, and tears flowed down his face. God would not forgive those who did wrong easily. If you did something wrong, you would need to pay the same price in exchange. Yunjian turned her head and looked at Lin Zhaoyue's portrait in front of the morning hall again. Then, she turned around and left without any hesitation. Go, cherish. Once you miss a person, you will never meet again. This was fate. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2367. The bodyguards of the Lin family naturally didn't dare to stop Yunjian from leaving. Therefore, no one said anything about Yunjian's departure. 3 days later, the fencing competition would officially begin. The fencing competition that had been delayed due to the murder case was finally about to begin. The students of the Imperial College were extremely excited. On the night before the competition, Yun Jian and all the students who were participating in the competition were called together to visit the palace of the Imperial College. Everyone knew that the first dean of the Imperial College in the last century was John, an aristocrat of Countrywise Palace. He was also an artisan. After John came to Country Z and founded the Imperial College, the first thing he did was to order people to build a palace that was similar to the palace of Country Y. The architectural style of the palace was pure Country Y. Usually, the palace of the Imperial College was locked with a key from the outside. Only when the annual fencing competition was approaching would the registered students be allowed to visit the palace. At this moment, Yun Jian was walking towards the palace of the Imperial College with a group of students who were participating in the fencing competition. Wei Lin. You're here too. Let's go together. Luo Jiejun's voice came from behind Yun Jian just as she was walking towards the palace with a group of people. Needless to say, Luo Jiejun's tone was very cheerful when he saw Yun Jian. Yun Jian didn't turn around, so Luo Jiejun brought Hong Ling and Wei Min to Yun Jian. Wei Zhe was played by Yun Jian last time and couldn't move his hands no matter how hard he tried. Therefore, he could only give up this fencing competition. At this moment, Wei Min found Yun Jian to be more and more of an eyesore. Not only did she steal Brother Jun from her, she even beat up her brother until he didn't know what was going on. His hands couldn't move and he had no choice but to withdraw from the competition. However, just as Wei Min was about to say something unpleasant to Yun Jian, a voice was one step ahead of Wei Min and suddenly sounded in front of everyone. Wei Lin I'm coming, ha ha ha, let's hurry up and choose the flower sword. If we're late, those little bastards will snatch it away first. Everyone felt a gust of wind blow past them, and then a figure appeared beside them. As Luo Jichen ran to the front of the crowd, he put his hand on his crotch and fastened the zipper. Those who knew what was going on knew that Luo Jichen had just gone to the toilet. He didn't even have time to zip up his pants before he ran out. Those who didn't know would think that Luo Jichen had rushed over after visiting a prostitute. Puff! What the hell are you doing? When Hong Ling saw Luo Jichen's strange look, he grabbed a handful of his short red hair and laughed out loud. Get lost. He's just like my brother. I can't be bothered to see you. Luo Jichen pushed Hong Ling aside and walked over to Yun Jian. He said to Yun Jian, don't worry. Wei Lin, let's go quickly. If it's too late, all the swords for tomorrow's fencing competition will be taken away. One of the main reasons he came to the palace was because there were many flower swords hidden inside the palace. Fencing was another name for the sword used in fencing competitions. Not only were there many flower swords hidden inside the palace, there were also many names, portraits, and statues of the fencing geniuses from the Imperial College that were hidden in the palace. The college allowed the students to come here every year. Other than choosing a suitable flower sword for their competition, they also wanted the students to visit the names, portraits, and statues of the fencing geniuses from the past, and remember the glorious history of the past. Everyone quickly came to the interior of the palace, but just as they arrived at the interior of the palace, Yun Jian didn't see any flower swords to choose from. Instead, she saw a tall and familiar handsome man wearing the uniform of the Imperial College, walking towards her from not far away. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 2368. Yun Jian was slightly stunned when she saw the familiar figure before her cheeks flushed in the next second. Although there was no change in her expression, Luo Jiejun could clearly see the change in Yun Jian's gaze when she saw Ce walking over. It was something he had never seen on her face before. Who are you? Luo Jiejun extended his arm almost instinctively to stop Ce. Just as he extended his arm, Ce grabbed Luo Jiejun's wrist without even looking at him and broke it with a crack before tossing the man aside. Then, Ce grabbed Yunjian's hand and walked to a corner of the palace without a word. F***CK. Luo Jiejun's hand was broken. He spat out a curse, but he didn't chase after them. In a hidden corner of the palace, Ce pinned Yunjian against the wall and nibbled on her soft lips. It was only when the storm was over that he pulled her into his arms. Xiao Jian, I've settled everything. I'll stay here with you, Ce's low voice rang. Be it in Han Group or Deity Continent, there were tons of things waiting for him to do. In spite of it, Ce had already settled everything and enrolled in Emperor Academy to stay by her side. It was uncertain when the mysterious person would open the passage from Deity Continent to Puyo City, but Ce knew that he had to stay here with her. Yunjian replied as she hugged Ce. Her lips were pursed and her cheeks were rosy. It was a pretty sight. What followed was another round of passionate kisses like a storm. By the time Yunjian and Ce came to the public side by side, Luo Jiejun had already reattached his hand that was broken by Ce. Luo Jiejun was a martial artist, so reattaching a broken hand was a piece of cake for him. Wei Lin, he's. When Luo Jiejun saw Yunjian and Ce coming over, he pointed at Yunjian and asked loudly like he was catching an adulterer in the act. Luo Jiejun could clearly see that Yunjian's lips were much redder than before, as if someone had kissed her for a long time and left a mark on them. Her man, Ce clasped Yunjian's hand without hesitation and led Yunjian past Luo Jiejun. Ce had enrolled in school and signed up for the fencing competition, but he did not bother to take part. Both of them chose their fangs. They were supposed to stand where they were with the other students and wait for them to choose their fangs before they left. However, Ce held Yunjian's hand and stood beside an antique window on the 3rd floor of the palace, asking Yunjian, Xiao Jian, can we jump? He was going to take her to skip school. There were teachers on the 1st floor, so the fastest and most convenient way to skip school was to jump down from the 3rd floor of the palace. Yunjian nodded. The 3rd floor was a piece of cake. Then, Ce held Yunjian's hand and leaped down from the 3rd floor of the palace with her to the outside. They left the school by jumping over the wall. Ce was not interested in school. There was only one thing he was interested in, her. When Yunjian got into Ce's Lamborghini sports car, Ce told Yunjian, the mystery man will probably take action soon. I'll always be with you, I won't let you get hurt. Ce would only say this when there was no one around. Yunjian nodded. Ce glanced at Yunjian and stared at her soft red lips. Unable to hold himself back, he kissed them again. In the end, his hand found its way to her buttocks. Just as he touched her buttocks, however, Ce felt a trickle of water. He frowned and raised his hand to take a look, only to see that the water flowing on his hand was blood. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com, Wonderful Book Mobile Version Website, .com. Chapter 2369. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Ce had seen plenty of blood. Be it the blood of the dead or the living, it made no difference to Ce. He had never panicked at the sight of human blood. This time, however, Ce paused and stopped what he was doing. His piercing gaze was fixed on Yunjian's pale lips, his previous aloofness and nonchalance turning into endless panic. Xiao Jian, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? The amount of blood was nothing like when his Xiao Jian was on her period. Once Ce was done with his panicked words, he did not even bother to open the door. He kicked it open and scooped Yunjian up, leaving the Lamborghini sports car behind to carry Yunjian to Emperor Academy's infirmary. Ci's expression was terrifyingly dark. It was only when something happened to Yunjian that his aloofness would change completely. His Xiao Jian was fine in the palace just now, but after jumping down from the third floor, once he thought about it, Ce clenched his fists that were carrying Yunjian. If he was not in a hurry to send Yunjian to the hospital, he would probably punch himself to death. The Imperial College had its own school doctor's office, and the medical equipment was considered to be very complete in the college. Many illnesses, including women's private matters, could be handled by the Academy's infirmary. Hence, Ce carried Yunjian all the way here. His tall and handsome figure attracted a lot of attention from the Academy, but Ce did not care. They passed by Emperor Academy on their way to the palace that Yunjian and Ce had visited just now. On the third floor of the palace, Luo Jiejun grew increasingly agitated when he saw Yunjian and Ce leaving. In the end, he ditched Wei Min, Hongling, and the others and hurried to apply for leave from the teacher and left. Wei Min did not bother to stay with Hongling either. She stood by the ancient window on the third floor of the palace in a huff, her mind drifting away. Hey, isn't that the transfer student who just came today? Ah! He's so handsome. How can there be such a handsome guy? He's carrying a girl too. It's true. He's so handsome. I used to think that our school's Master Jun was the most handsome person in the world, but after seeing this transfer student, I realized that I don't even want to look at him anymore. Two girls who were standing by the window not too far away when they saw a handsome figure running by Yunjian from the bottom of Emperor Academy. They covered their faces in excitement. Their voices attracted Wei Min's as well. The man who carried Wei Min was running translation was carrying Wei Min translation. Translation. When Wei Min saw this, her eyes twitched fiercely. In the next second, she turned around and went down the stairs of the palace. She casually applied for leave from her teacher and left the palace. Before Yunjian could react and explain herself, Ce had already carried her to the school doctor's office and placed her on the examination bed. The school doctor in charge of the examination was a female doctor. After examining Yunjian, she did not find anything wrong with her body. She was still a little suspicious. Why would her lower body bleed all of a sudden? However, in order not to be mistaken as a quack, the female doctor pressed on Yunjian's stomach twice and concluded that the cause of Yunjian's lower body bleeding was. The female doctor also prescribed some medicine for Yunjian. When she passed the medicine to Ce, she saw that there was a trace of sweat on Ce's originally handsome face, which would not change even if the sky collapsed. It was obvious that he was concerned about Yunjian's condition. The female doctor was afraid that she would be mistaken as a quack, so she pinned the blame on Ce. Young man, I see that you're young, handsome, and responsible. I didn't expect you to be such a person. You actually dared to bring your girlfriend to play a game of jumping from the third floor. You're unscathed, but do you know that your girlfriend already has? Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy. Chapter 2370. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Yunjian is probably XX, page 1/1. Just now, the female doctor had asked Ce if Yunjian had done any strenuous exercise before she bled profusely down there. In the end, Ce told her that he had jumped down from the third floor of the palace with her. Oh my god! One floor of the palace was twice the height of a normal residential building. Jumping down from the third floor of the palace was equivalent to jumping down from the sixth floor. The female doctor thought it was a miracle that she didn't die from the fall. What was even scarier was that the baby in the girl's stomach was completely fine. That was 2F*King amazing. Even now, the female doctor still didn't know what was going on with the pool of blood that was flowing out of Yunjian's lower body. Dr. Jiang. Have you finished prescribing the cold medicine I asked you to prescribe for me last time? However, just as the female doctor was about to finish her sentence, a clear female voice came from outside the school's infirmary. The owner of the female voice interrupted the female doctor and strode into the school's infirmary. Cough, cough. As she spoke, the owner of the female voice covered her mouth and coughed twice. Then, the owner of the female voice seemed to have suddenly seen Yunjian and shouted at Yunjian in shock, Wei Lin, why are you here? The person who came was none other than Wei Lin, who had seen Ce carrying Yunjian into the school's infirmary. Wei Lin felt that something was amiss, so she followed along. Yunjian merely glanced at Wei Lin and did not respond to her. Wei Lin's motive wasn't that. When she saw that Yunjian was ignoring her, she walked over and dragged the female doctor, who was called Dr. Jiang, out of the school's infirmary. Dr. Jiang, my cold is getting worse. Please give me my medicine first. Cough, cough. Dr. Jiang was dragged away by Wei Min, but before she left, she didn't forget to say to Ce, all right. You can leave later. Your girlfriend is fine. Remember to take care of her body when you go back. Don't play games like jumping down from the third floor of the palace next time. Ce heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that Dr. Jiang was fine. His clean black hair was already soaked in sweat. One could imagine how scared he was just now, but he didn't show it on his face. After Dr. Jiang walked out of the school's infirmary, Yunjian tugged at Ce's sleeve. Ce turned to look at her. Yunjian's Dr. Jiang, Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Yunjian, and Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang. Dr. Jiang, Dr. Jiang, and Dr. Jiang. Dr. Jiang. Dr. Jiang, who had been pulled out of the infirmary by Wei Min, was dragged to a corner by Wei Min. Knowing that Wei Min was the eldest daughter of the Wei family, Dr. Jiang did not dare to provoke her. After Dr. Jiang was dragged to the corner, Wei Min crossed her arms and looked at Dr. Jiang. I'll give you two choices. First, work for me. Second, pack up and leave. Dr. Jiang, I think you're a smart person. You should know what to choose. Wei Min crossed her arms and said bluntly to Dr. Jiang. The Wei family was a famous and influential family in Piluo City. The children of the Wei family were all powerful people in Emperor College. Moreover, the eldest daughter of the Wei family, Wei Min, was different from the youngest daughter of the Wei family, Wei Lin. Wei Lin had been lost for many years. Among the daughters of the Wei family, Wei Min was undoubtedly the most favored. Dr. Jiang was not stupid. She immediately said to Wei Min, Miss Wei, what's the matter? Just say it. After hearing Dr. Jiang's words, Wei Min pursed her lips and asked, what's the situation with Wei Lin? Tell me. When Dr. Jiang heard this, she told her everything she knew. I pressed her stomach just now. According to my experience, there's a 99% chance that she should be pregnant. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2371. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. What? Wei Min thought that she would hear something, but after hearing Dr. Jiang's words, her expression changed drastically. It was only when Wei Min realized that she had shouted too loudly that she reached out to cover her mouth. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Wei Lin was pregnant. With whom? Whose child? What did she go through before she returned to the Wei family? Could it be that the child was the child of the breathtakingly handsome man who was dozens of times more handsome than her handsome brother. No. How was that possible? Why? Why was Wei Lin's man better than hers? After hearing the news, Wei Min clutched her long hair tightly with both hands, her brows furrowed tightly. She's really pregnant. Wei Min repeated through gritted teeth. In fact, Yun Jian and Wei Min were already university students. It was just that the rules of the Imperial Academy made university students' lives look more similar to high school students. It was not strange for university students to get pregnant in today's society. There were even rural families who married their daughters off at the age of 15 or 16. At the age of 18, they should be mothers of 2 children. In 2003, there were not many people who were admitted to university in this era. In the previous era, there were a lot of people who did not even study in high school, let alone go to university. If one were to push back the time to the previous century, in Qin Yi's era, one had to rely on exam results to enter junior high school from elementary school. At that time, half of the students could not even enter junior high school from elementary school. In that era, what could they do if they could not go to school early? Of course, they could go out and find a job. If they went out to work early, they would meet people early and get married and have children early. In 2003, there were many people who got married and had children early in this era. However, they had to be of legal age to get a marriage certificate from the Civil Affairs Bureau. Although Wei Min was shocked, it was not to the point of disbelief. I've been practicing medicine for so many years. I used to be in the gynecology department. Even the gynecologists in Puluo City's People's Hospital can't compare to me in terms of belly touching. Don't worry, I'm sure of it. As soon as Wei Min finished speaking, Dr. Jiang spoke. At this point, Dr. Jiang frowned again and asked in confusion, "What's the matter?" But the strange thing is that the two of them just jumped down from the 3rd floor of the palace, which is equivalent to 6 floors of an ordinary residential building. The scary thing isn't that nothing happened to the two of them. You have to know that the first 3 months of a normal girl's pregnancy is the most important period of protection. In the end, the girl jumped down from a height of 6 stories, and the baby in her belly was completely fine. If it were anyone else, they would have had a miscarriage long ago. And her stomach is as hard as steel. It's as if she's not pregnant at all. For a girl to be able to do this, her body should be strong enough to beat up the men from the special forces. This is too scary. Dr. Zhang's words made Wei Min gasp in shock. Then, Wei Min asked Dr. Jiang, "Is there any way to make her miscarry?" After hearing Wei Min's words, Dr. Jiang was silent for 2 seconds before she said, "This is not easy to do. That girl's physique is too good. Even if you hit her stomach with an iron rod, she won't easily miscarry. But it's not completely impossible." Top reading site, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.